This is The Rich Eisen Show from The Rich Eisen Show studio in Los Angeles.
Ready for it?
Rich Eisen.
Oh, that's Susie Eisen.
Thank you. That's why I'm here.
Heard nationwide, televised online at richeisenshow.com.
I only spit truth and deliver advice here that I think is well intended.
Today's guest, ESPN MLB insider Jeff Passan, Minnesota Vikings head coach Mike Zimmer, Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh, plus Kansas City Chiefs head coach Andy Reid. And now, it's Rich Eisen.
Okay, we're back here live on the Rich Eisen Show, live from the Rich Eisen Studios in Los Angeles, California. My name is Rich Eisen. I'm the host of this program. Good to see you, Chris Brockman. Good to see you, Mike Del Tufo.
Good to see you, Rich.
Lots going on today.
I know, right?
There's a lot to read up on, study up on.
Tell me about it.
Let's start with return to sports. The folks in across the pond, as I'm mandated to say as an American broadcaster, presenter, as they would say. The Premier League ownership got together and voted on a schedule.
All right.
So the Premier League essentially doing what hockey did with a little bit extra is that they've agreed on allowing players to get back to practicing, and tackling will be allowed. And so the idea is go back to training. You got it. Open up, go back to training, and then here's the schedule. June 17th is when the Premier League will restart, and then they're going to get everybody back on schedule to get up to 29 matches played, fixtures as they're called, and then play this thing out. And the cup will be, let me get the exact dates here. Their aim is to complete all league fixtures by August 1st, and then the FA Cup can be completed with the final anticipated on the 8th of August. And if international travel is allowed and the pandemic allows and matters improve, subside is the word that they used, then Champions League and Europa League fixtures can also be completed. Discussed on Thursday's meeting were staging friendlies on training grounds. Teams in close proximity would do that. They want to try to minimize travel, try and prevent any further spread, keep things safe. They did give a date. Now, they did give a date, the 17th of June.
Yes.
There will be a schedule that is put out once it's released. So there's that. But, of course, the virus can give you that old conditions warrant. But the folks in the Premier League have decided we're going to do this thing. And the importance of playing everything out, and there will be a concern about this. And Rebecca Lowe from NBC Sports coverage will be joining us in the back end of our first hour on NBCSN. Second hour here at 1:40 Eastern Time.
Right on.
Right in the middle of a slew of coaches from American football, collegiate and professional. As you could see, Mike Zimmer of the Vikings is first up at 1:20 when we're on NBCSN. Jim Harbaugh at 2 Eastern Time. Andy Reid at 2:20 p.m. Eastern Time. Lots to talk about with those gentlemen. Certainly about the readiness for play in the NFL and college football. We all know what the University of Michigan president had to say in the Wall Street Journal about doubting that there will be sports on the collegiate gridiron this fall. Be that as that may, there is a big vote in the NFL that's slated to happen as soon as we're off the air at 3 Eastern Time, where ownership votes yay or nay on giving teams an alternative to keep the football after scoring. Instead of kicking it off or onside kicking, you can go for it, one shot from your own 25 on 4th and 15 to keep the football. And that's a very crucial change of the rules that, again, will be either voted up or down in a moment or today, and we'll discuss it with those coaches. And then Jeff Passan will join us first up in 15 minutes' time, because on the flip side of the Premier League, which is coming out with a return-to-play format, schedule, dates, and unlike the NHL, which is coming out with a return-to-play announcement with no dates or locations, but a format, the NBA apparently is close to announcing a format and the idea of returning to play at some point in hub cities, we're assuming. We're even hearing the rumor one of the hub cities would be Disney World, if not the entire hub city for the NBA. And conversation about rumors of allowing family members to be part of the quarantine bubble. And so that would, I think, bring some interesting potential family moments in the NBA.
Yes.
The name Jack Haley just leaps to mind. May he rest in peace. Then there's baseball.
I mean, what's going on?
Then there's baseball. And the level of distrust, as it has been explained to me, it doesn't, I mean, I could say it's been explained to me, and it has been by somebody on the inside. But you don't need to be on the inside to see that there's a certain level of distrust between owners and players. And what a time for this thing to rear its ugly head. What a time. What a time for it to rear its ugly head. And you're seeing Max Scherzer of the Nationals saying the proposal that the owners made to split things 50-50 and give you a pool of money that they see fit to take the most from the haves and let the have-nots keep as much as they can, that proposal is deserving of zero response. Let me get Max Scherzer's statement. Appropriate. Max Scherzer going to social media saying there's no further reason to engage. After discussing the latest developments with the rest of the players, there's no reason to engage with MLB in any further compensation reductions. We have previously negotiated a pay cut in the version of prorated salaries, and there's no justification to accept a second pay cut based upon the current information the union has received. Oh, my gosh. And remember I said yesterday, Chris, with that players will absolutely view the latest proposal as trying to break them in two between the haves and the have-nots.
Absolutely.
And also be viewed as baseball's intention. As Scherzer's statement at the very end made a shot referencing how the release of this documentation would affect Major League Baseball's economic strategy, saying, quote unquote, I'm glad to hear other players voicing the same viewpoint and believes MLB's economic strategy would completely change if all documentation were to become public information. That means what? What did I say yesterday, Chris, when I heard that proposal that was out there? What did I say to you yesterday? I said that players will view this as not only an attempt to break them in two, but also to put the onus on them in the eyes of public opinion that it's their fault. You are the greedy ones.
And I'm already seeing that in my mentions.
You are the greedy ones, players. Get your you-know-what together. Right? Then, on the owner's side of things, it's like we've already paid money out to so many different people who we have employed for the year, for part of the year. That money's out the door. And without millions of people coming in and buying hot dogs, the revenue structure has changed from when they decided to agree to prorate salaries. And they're offering players a 50-50 split, a partnership. This is it. Here's the money. You get 50%, we get 50%. And that sounds reasonable on its face, too. Again, I'm not an expert at this. I'm not seeing all the economics, and I'm also not politically involved in all of this. and that I am not. I am just an impartial observer, but the son of two members of a union, teachers union. So I have been exposed to how unions helped my family put food on the table. And, as my parents, entered their 80s, how their union deals from back when they were teachers were helping them make ends meet. My father's passing, and now my mom sitting alone during the pandemic. I mean, I'm just telling you where I'm coming from. Them being in their teachers union is being helpful now. So I do lean on that side. But I'm otherwise impartial when it comes down to this. Baseball cannot. The cooler heads must prevail. The moderates must prevail. Looks like Scott Boras isn't one of them. We had him on last week. How many times did I try to ask him about what's going on with the players union? And his response was, I'm not part of the union. They are negotiating, and let them do their thing. Right. He essentially said, how many times did I ask him over and over again about the negotiations? And his response was, that's them. But I asked him, what's going on now? And he kept talking about March. Right. To the point where I had to say, hey, are you saying that March is still operative here in May because baseball's saying the exact difference? And his response, if I'm not mistaken, had something to do with, well, they knew back in March that the likelihood of no fans would be there. And a 50-50 split sounds like a salary cap. Is essentially what he's saying. I'm just summarizing what he said. And we'll ask this all of Jeff Passan shortly, who said that the Players Association does plan to send a proposal with economic terms back to baseball by the end of the week. And as Max Scherzer did tweet, as we mentioned, the players do not plan to make any salary concessions. I think they're just going to give more games, maybe.
Yeah, Jeff mentioned that players would be down with 100 or so games instead of the proposed, half season.
But one person who I guess either doesn't buy what Scott said on our show, saying, hey, that's the associate. We're not, I'm not part of the union. And at one point, I think I said, I know you're not part of the union, but you do represent 175 players. Many of them,
a lot of players,
are ones, if they say, I'm not coming because of this, let's just say the Phillies look different if Bryce Harper takes that stance. Just throwing his name out first.
Okay.
Trevor Bauer, who we all know, Ohio baseball fans certainly know, many years with the Indians, now with the Reds. He tweeted out hearing a lot of rumors about a certain player agent meddling in MLB-PA affairs. If true, and at this point these are only rumors, I have one thing to say. Scott Boras, rep your clients however you want to, but keep your damn personal agenda out of union business. Okay, so it's interesting how in 240 characters you could be passive-aggressive and then just really aggressive.
Yeah, dance around something and then
Twitter,
go right through the front door.
In old Twitter, it was passive-aggressive, but now new Twitter, which has got more characters.
Oh,
there you go.
And then he did a follow-up. Didn't know he had a Twitter account. Now that I know, and then he
was at Boras Corp.
Boras Corp, yeah.
I'll just say it again, man. Baseball cannot throw its hands up and say we're not doing it over money. Just can't. And I understand that, again, I call it a glass house for two reasons. One, we're seeing straight end right now. And two, other sports leagues will be going through this. That's why I asked Charles Robinson of Yahoo yesterday, will the NFL go through this? Is this coming? The NFL is saying that they're operating as if there's a full season and we're expecting fans in the stands. Stephen Ross saying there's a plan for 15,000 fans to be allowed into Miami Dolphins games. But that's not, and I know all you out there like to troll on the Dolphins and their problems filling up that Hard Rock Stadium. But it's definitely not capacity. Is this what's coming for the NFL? And I if it does, it would behoove the NFL and the NFLPA, and they might be doing it right now, and I hope they are, having these conversations now. A little what if now. Because right now, hockey's made this announcement, and they might be talking to their union, and I'm hearing they are. And the NBA is talking. I think everybody's going to give this thing a whirl. And if baseball doesn't even come out with a schedule like everybody else is doing,
right? It's
I would tell baseball right now, let's work on the schedule. The problem is the finances and the schedule are now intertwined.
Yeah.
The NBA is going to come out with a schedule soon. I think the NBA is going to come out with everything done.
That's why I think we haven't heard
done.
anything from them in a while. They want a concrete plan, like I said, soup to nuts.
And even the players aren't really too thrilled part of the NBA in the name of Dame Lillard, Damian Lillard, the great Dame of Portland, saying, "Yeah, I'm not coming if there's no real shot at making the playoffs," which would be just playing things out the rest of the string. I don't think the NBA is going to play things out the rest of the string. I think they're going to do something similar to what the NHL is doing, and something that Brian Windhorst suggested to us pre-pandemic. Remember that?
I do.
Pre-pandemic, where he said, hey, for the NBA, from now on, this would fix also their schedule problems and their issues with starting too soon, and would remove the whole concept of load management being a problem, spending the last week and a half, 2 weeks of the season, instead of playing regular season games, having a play-in tournament, everybody from last place to 8th place thrown in, and the winner of that tournament plays the 1 seed as the 8th and final playoff spot, proprietors of an NBA playoff schedule. Why not do that?
Let's rock.
Right?
Sounds great.
And what you're talking about here, certainly, I'm not even talking about the East. Out West, you've got 2 Rookie of the Year candidates in the mix. The top 2 Rookie of the Year candidates.
Well, any chance you can get Zion into the mix and have him in the playoff picture.
Well, he's not even the top. He's not even the leader in the clubhouse of the Rookie of the Year candidacy.
I know, but he's the most dynamic rookie that we have.
Right. So what I'm saying is you've got the top 2 rookies in the league back in there. You've got the Blazers in that mix. And you'd even have the Warriors, who I think would be one of the few teams to raise their hand saying, we're done, man.
Well,
that's what Steve Kerr's already said.
Yeah, said a month ago.
But the NBA is going to make a run of this. They're not going to throw their hands up and say, we couldn't figure this out financially. Man, baseball, what a time to do all this.
But it's like
there's
baseball.
There's time to take it out of the fire. I know, well, you could see it's so baseball, but they haven't had a dispute since 1994. I know it's so baseball, and they blew off an entire postseason. I know they did that, how terrible that was. And
it took 4 years for people to really come back. It took the home run chase to really get people back into baseball.
Right.
And if they do it again, and there's no season this year, how much longer is it going to take now? Things are different in 2020 than they were in 1998.
Right.
I don't know how many people are going to come back.
(844-204-RICH) is the number to dial. Jeff Passan's going to join us from ESPN to have this conversation. And I wasn't planning on having it. I was basically like, let baseball stay under the radar and do their conversations and not like say, hey, we haven't heard anything from them lately. But now when you've got a Cy Young Award winner calling the owners out for basically union busting and public opinion abuse, basically what he's saying, and then you've got another pitcher who fans know about. I mean, doesn't have the same trophy case as Max Scherzer,
but he's very outspoken. Trevor Bauer
calling out an agent, saying that basically saying that there is dissension amongst the union ranks. And then you hear everything that the owners have put on the table, and it does sound like, what do they say? Like Mike Trout, Mike Trout would lose like 90% of his salary.
Yeah, he'll go from 37 to 5.5. Basically.
I was told that math is off. That's what I was told. That's not accurate.
Interesting.
So there's a lot out there. So to make heads or tails of it, I mean, I text him this, and I'll say it here on the air too, just so I'm consistent. This is my first choice to have this conversation. I always love our conversations with ESPN MLB Insider, senior MLB Insider, Jeff Passan. How are you, Jeff?
Hello, Richard. How are you?
I am hanging in there, sir. I'm hanging in there. This seems particularly, it seems, 2 weeks ago sounded ugly. Then last time we chatted, last week, it was, okay, everybody's quiet, so I'll take that as good news. And now people aren't quiet anymore. And this seems particularly ugly, Jeff. It sounds very ugly.
Yeah, it's ugly. I still don't think we're at the point now where we need to full-on panic. To me, I think the full-on panic comes. Well, first we have to wait and see what the union says exactly in its proposal back to MLB. We understand that they are going to outright reject the economic proposal that MLB gave them on Tuesday by essentially not acknowledging it. Our friend Scott Van Pelt said it's essentially like if you have $1 million home and someone gives you a $200,000 offer on it. You're just not going to acknowledge that offer ever existed. And I think the players aren't going to acknowledge that the economic proposal from baseball ever existed. So I think after that, what we're going to get to see is, A, what do the players want? And B, how do the owners react? And that is going to be the biggest tell of all, Rich, because if the owners, say, you know what, we can't talk with these people, we're not going to do this, it's going to be gridlock for a little while. And the idea of coming back with spring training on June 10th and opening day by the 4th of July simply is not going to happen. So I think that is what's at stake right now.
Well, let's take it piece by piece then, Jeff. I mean, June 10th seems very pie in the sky. Let's just take it one piece at a time. Has there been agreement at least on the safety protocols, or that's still something that's out there? That's just taking a backseat. It makes no sense to talk about it.
There's no in stone agreement at this point, but there's not going to be an issue there.
Okay.
Everyone, I've been telling you this for a while now. Everyone wants the same thing with safety. Like, everyone wants players to be healthy and for coronavirus not to infiltrate clubhouses and to do everything they can to ensure that doesn't happen. And I think that players, while inconvenienced by this, are not ultimately going to put up much of a protest. They want they want hot tubs and cold tubs, for example, and they should, because that's part of their recovery regimen. And when you're going from 0 to 60 and trying to restart games as quickly as they are, there's the possibility of injuries, and you want to make sure that your body is as well tuned as it possibly can be under the circumstances.
So, I mean, there's give and there's take and all that sort of stuff, and as long as everybody's safe and happy, I get that. So, okay, let's place this aside. So this is just basically a money issue, right? And so
totally a money issue.
So,
and here's listen,
yes.
The players say we're concerned about our health and safety, and they are. I don't think that's disingenuous, but the problem is they're also concerned about the money, and the money is the thing that they don't have an agreement on at this point. The health and safety, if you told baseball players that we are going to wipe away all of the money issues that you have, and all we need to play tomorrow is a health and safety agreement, they would get it done in 24 hours. Truly believe that. On the other hand, to do that with money, it's going to take a lot longer than 24 hours.
Well, because it's certainly, if it sounds like, the position is owners saying, I know we agreed to the prorating back in March, but the boots on the ground that the virus has placed on all of us changes everything. Now that we know there's definitely going to be no fans, now that we know the circumstances under which we will have to play the prorated games, we didn't factor that in March, or we didn't agreed to things back in March, knowing what we'd have to do
Rich,
here in May.
Here's the thing: the league does believe that it's factored that in. The league believes that there's language in that contract and that deal with the Players Association that absolutely covers the scenario that you just mentioned, and there are words in there about economic feasibility and good faith bargaining, and that essentially baseball believes the way that the contract is worded. And I've talked with a number of lawyers who agree with the league on this, that the way that it's worded, it essentially puts the onus on the players to bargain in good faith over what salaries doesn't say specifically over what salaries are going to be, but it says over the economic feasibility, and you can take economic feasibility and extrapolate it out to salaries, considering those are going to be the largest taker of capital from owners.
So now that we're in a good old fashioned lawyer taking a look at contract conversation. What if the players believe that the owners aren't dealing in good faith because of what Max Scherzer's clearly saying, that this is another pay cut they're being asked to do, and the way that the owners are putting it out there by saying that there's not everything is public information and that baseball's economic strategy would change if everything was under the light of day. The reading in between the lines, there's a lot of threats about union busting and using public opinion in a bad faith way, right? Am I reading that correctly, Jeff?
I don't. I'll tell you, I don't. I personally have not gotten the vibe of union busting from this.
Okay, good.
I think that MLB just made a kind of a repulsive offer.
Okay.
That's just what it was. I think if you want to say that's not bargaining in good faith, there's a reasonable case for that to be made. But I also think that offer shows MLB believes that it is operating from a position of strength, because otherwise it would not offer something that it knows outright is going to be rejected by the players and is going to probably insult the players. In that position of strength, I don't know what it is exactly, because the people who are running this negotiation are professional negotiators and are much smarter than I am. But I think they have the backing of owners right now who want to be hard line about this. These are people who are not used to losing money, and there's a chance that they're either not going to make as much. It's clear they're not going to make as much as they have in the past. But if you take MLB at face value, they say that owners are going to be losing tens, in some cases hundreds of millions of dollars. And the problem that the Players Association has is that it just doesn't believe that. And this is something, Rich, that goes back. It's endemic. I mean, it is built into the DNA of the Major League Baseball Players Association for the players to come up and be told and taught, do not trust Major League Baseball. Do not trust Major League Baseball. I mean, I don't know if the words are exactly said like that, but that's essentially the message that's delivered to every player who comes up in the big leagues. And so when you get to situations like this where MLB is saying, trust us, players are going, we want to see some documents. We want to see how much money you guys are making with your local television contracts. We want to see how much money you're making in national television contracts. We want to see what your projections are if you play no games. We want to see all of these things, local sponsorship agreements, stuff like that. We want you to provide evidence that you are going to be as poor as you say you are, because we can't take you at your word after all the things that you've done both historically and in recent years.
All right, so then Jeff Passan of ESPN here on the Rich Eisen Show, senior MLB insider. Are we essentially right now getting a full-on collective bargaining agreement argument, like front-loading the CBA conversation? Is that what's happening right now? Because if that's what's happening right now, then we got a problem. Because when you're talking about when you're saying words like "open the books," that just sounds like 2011 and NFL labor dispute to me right now. I just got a flashback, man. That was
sounds familiar, right?
Yeah, too familiar to me. Because again, it sounds like I'm being alarmist, and you're telling me not to be. That's what this sounds like.
No, I don't think you're being alarmist at all. I think the alarm bells are close to sounding. I think that baseball is further away now from playing than it was before this week. This week has not helped, and maybe we look back, Rich, in the things that happened Tuesday and the reaction of the players Wednesday was necessary for getting past this impasse that we seem to be stuck in right now. But it may just be the start of something that takes baseball down a path of destruction. And that's what this is. Like, that's, again, I have said this from the start, man, and I just have trouble, even when I see something or hear something that says, like, screams to me, this is bad, Jeff. I get back to the idea that if baseball doesn't play this year and the NBA and NHL and NFL do, baseball, both the players and the owners have dug their own grave.
So then how much?
Like that's it. That's as simple as I can put it.
I know. So then what is that at least in the mind's eye of everybody as they're talking? At least are they aware?
I think so. I mean, I think what we have here is a group of men who, in some cases, inherited, but in a lot of cases, made billions of dollars and did so through shrewd business decisions and are not likely to be trifled with when it comes to their money and losing lots of it potentially. And I think we have a players' association that feels emboldened, that feels, for the most part, together, and that feels insulted by what happened on Tuesday with the economic proposal from MLB. And man, if you want to unify a group of mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s, mid-30s, like very high testosterone men who have pride in what they do and want, it's the wrong group of guys to insult. Like, I don't know, maybe there's not a right group of guys to insult, but this group in particular, insulting them is not going to make them cower. It's not going to push them away from their goal and their objective. It's going to embolden them. And they feel emboldened right now because they feel like not only are they in the right economically, they feel like they're in the right morally too. And while they understand that the general public looks at players who want to get what they're supposed to get and who want to get what the market will bear for them as greedy, which has never made any sense to me because
everybody else would do it.
Everyone else are trying to get theirs. I mean, it's just the reality of the world that for some reason the general public sides with owner over labor, and I don't get that.
Jeff Passan here on the Rich Eisen Show. Couple more minutes left with you. What's the Trevor Bauer beef with Scott Boras? What's that all about? Give me the skinny on that.
If I had more information, I certainly would tell you. Trevor likes beefing with people. Like, that's just his thing, man. If he feels a particular way, he will talk about it. And I will say this: Scott Boras has a lot of influence over the union right now. He's got the ear of people at the MLBPA. He's got half of the executive subcommittee as his clients. And the executive subcommittee is the group of 8 players who make the biggest decisions and who are on the calls with MLB. And, Max Scherzer, a client of Scott Boras's, he just he has consolidated a great amounts of power in this situation and is not afraid to wield it. And he is one of the hardliners. He is one of the people who believes that the agreement from March is valid for the players, that they should push for their full pro rata, and that they need to stick to it. And, whatever you want to think about Scott Boras, it's fine. But one thing that you must think about him, he's a good negotiator generally.
Yeah.
Like that is one area of his. You can disagree with him, morally, ethically. You can think he's the devil. The guy's been a pretty good negotiator throughout his career, and Garrett Cole has 324 million reasons to say that, and Anthony Rendon and Steven Strasburg have 245 million reasons, and you can go on and on. I mean, the guy booked $1 billion in contracts this offseason. So he is, when he's in the room, doing something right.
And also, I learned in the conversation I had with him last week, he can fill out a prescription. I had no idea he's got a degree in pharmacology from the University of Pacific.
He is a pharmacologist as well. But don't ever call him Dr. Boras because he might get a bigger head than he already has.
Oh, my gosh. So Trevor Bauer's basically hearing Scherzer in these conversations and assuming it's Boras. Is that should we? I know you don't want to wade into these waters, I guess, but that's.
I'm not. I think that is a fair connection to make, but I don't know what caused Trevor to say that. I do know that there's a not insignificant group of people who believe that Boras wields too much power and too much influence, but now we're just getting into politics and palace intrigue and the sort of stuff that is as much and quite often hearsay as anything.
Okay, so we've got to let's brass tacks it again. This is. I feel like I go through therapy with you every single time you're on here. So let's brass tacks it here. It's May 20. What is it? 28th. May 28th. June 10th seems pie in the sky. Certainly, if baseball players are saying we'll give you 110 games, I mean, you got to start yesterday. If you don't want to play in bone chilling November, like a World Series game is snowed out, unless of course we just go into a bubble community,
neutral site,
right? You know what I mean? Like I don't know, like so yeah. You well, percentage wise, it for me. What do you think? What do we got here and when? If at all.
For the whole enchilada.
Yes.
I'm still over 50%. I was at 75 yesterday afternoon or so, and part of that is because I thought the union was gonna bend a little bit. I did. I did not believe that the union was going to come out as strident as it did, and when that happened, that definitely decreased the possibility of a season happening this year, but it certainly did not nullify it. What it did was set up a scenario in which the doomsday trigger could be pulled. It's going to come down to the owners. I mean, I do believe when the players say we want to play, I do actually believe that. I think there are some owners who don't.
Really?
I think there's some owners who worry. Yeah, I think there's some owners who worry that playing is going to cost them too much. They're going to lose too much money, and that they would rather just punt the 2020 season. And that is, that's it's a scary thing to hear.
It is because
it feels like you're focusing just on 2020 and not the repercussions beyond.
Damn straight, because to use the mid-'90s analogy, Sosa and McGuire's not walking through that door. Cal Ripken Jr. breaking Lou Gehrig's streak prior to that. It's not walking through that door. There's not going to be a single kumbaya moment or season that could appear out of nowhere, right? Like they got back in the 90s to get everybody back in the fold.
The thing. You never know when a ragtag group of people with a kid coming out of prison who throws really hard in the California Penal League and guy in center field who really fast and steals a lot of bases, and an aging third base.
You're going Indians on me. I get it. I know you're going Major League on me. I know.
Listen. That is the Clevelander in me.
I like it.
And look, the Indians winning, it's not the Cubs winning, it's not the Red Sox winning. And you're right. Something like that does not just materialize to rest. But we also couldn't have predicted Sosa and McGuire. We couldn't have predicted. Could have predicted Cal.
Right.
I just think that what happened in 1994 should exist as a history lesson, and that everybody, and I mean everybody involved in this process, better understand what the consequences would be. And here's the thing, like I genuinely think that this is going to show who cares about the game of baseball and who cares about the bottom line. And it'll be interesting to see what the answer to that question is.
Well, I don't know if this is just the bottom line in here, to use that phrase. I don't know why baseball seems to be the only league where those have to be pitted against one another. Again, I don't know what is going on with the NBA and the NHL, and obviously the NFL has a few weeks and months to have to deal with something like this. But why is it always baseball where it comes down to, well, it's either for the good of the game, who loves the game, and who loves the dollar, right? Why is it always baseball? What the hell is the question, I guess?
I think history is a really difficult thing to ignore. And I think history can be weaponized. And I think that's what's happening. I think that if you had people who wanted to make a deal, they would not always fall back on the terrible relations and sow any seeds of discord. But you know what, Rich? Those seeds of discord that have been sowed in the players, they were the same ones that were sowed generations ago when players fought for free agency, when the notion of free agency was utterly ridiculous, and nobody ever thought that thing like that should happen.
I guess the lesson is that it took so long for Marvin Miller to finally get his due, and of all the years for that to happen, right? Yeah. It's kind of crazy.
And here's the thing, though. Like the fight for free agency was a very righteous fight. What's the union? What I want players to answer, and what I'm curious about is, what's the union fighting for now? If the answer is they're fighting for their fair wage and what they believe they are due and owed, I get it. I totally understand that. But I'm also curious if it's something more, and if they see this as a microcosm of a bigger thing.
Well, and I guess again to put it in full bloom here, that players have never fought for their wage where the threat of maybe winding up on a ventilator is a possibility, right? And also baseball owners have never thought about the bottom line because a pandemic has hit either. I guess, although I don't know what the conversation was back in 1918, but I guess to put a much lighter note on it, as you attempted to do moments ago, if this does not happen, I'll need a lot of Jobu's rum. How does that sound?
If this doesn't happen, I'm really looking forward to covering Major League darts.
I'm with you, Jeff. I'm with you. Thanks for the call, man. You are the best at what you do. I really mean it. Thanks again.
Thanks, Rich. Take it easy, Bill.
Yeah, that's Jeff Passan. He's always so kind and to jump on the phone. I'm sure he's pulled in many different directions. What a bummer, the whole damn thing.
It's just, dude.
Well, maybe
very bad to steal Joe Boo's rum.
There you go. I'm coming for it.
Good job, Mike.
844-204-RICH, number to dial. Let me just sneak in this call. John in Michigan, you're here in the Rich Eisen Show. What's up, John?
Hey, Rich, how's it going?
I'm sure you just heard that conversation. I'm looking down at what you told Adam, our call screener. You've got the floor.
Yeah. First off, it's an honor to be talking to you, and
Thank
you
you.
are voices of my childhood, so it's incredibly humbling to be talking to you today.
Wow, I appreciate you saying that. It's my my good fortune that I had all those years with Stewart all those years ago, and that if that puts any sense of nostalgia or whatever in you, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I work for GM. I'm one of the lucky ones who still had the job throughout this pandemic. About a couple months ago, I'm not sure if you saw in the news that the salaried employees like myself, we are non-union, but we did take a 20% pay deferment. So right now I'm only getting 80% of my annual salary, and that 20% that's being deferred will be paid back in a lump sum with interest. Don't have a definite date yet of when it's going to happen, but when it comes to things like with the MLB, with these players, do you think it's feasible to say, hey, look, can you guys take an 80% salary take home right now for the 82 games that we're going to play, just so that we can get this whole thing started, right? Mm-hmm. And then, hey, look, after the season, you're going to get that 20% back with interest. Do you think that that's something that's feasible or logical?
Look, I'm not a professional negotiator, and one of the things I'm definitely not great at is numbers. I'm more of a verbal guy. I did much better on verbal than the math on my SATs many moons ago. But sounds good to me. And what that sounds like to me, John, is what Jeff was talking about, and what somebody who I was talking to inside of all this was mentioning, that there's got to be cooler heads in a room to say, let's figure this out with something that sounds to me, as you pointed out, doable, if not reasonable. The problem is you heard Jeff Passan basically say moments ago, if you were hearing in the conversation, that here is Major League Baseball putting together a out of the gate proposal that Jeff called repulsive. And the question is why put something on the table that you know would repulse the other partners of yours that you need to put a product on the field, or for your case, on the road, or if you are part of, the people that are putting ventilators together, assuming that's what is happening there, then,
Actually, I'm just working from home, Rich.
Okay, great. What basically all I'm saying is that, that doesn't sound like it's kind. And if it's coming, then, you're talking to somebody like, well, we're negotiating. It's like, well, yeah, you're negotiating, but we're also trying to get to a spot where we need to come together. And if your first foray is something that Jeff Passan's called repulsive, but you can sit back and say, well, we're negotiating in good faith, and the other side's like, that doesn't seem like good faith to me. I don't know where your proposal's coming from. Again, it's got to come from somewhere, and I'm hoping it does come, because if it doesn't come, it's a total disaster. And I appreciate your call, John. Thank you for calling today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rick.
Be well with you and your family, and I hope you get that lump sum soon. Hope you get it soon. And that's an example right there of somebody, hey, I gave up 20% of my salary, and it certainly ain't multiple millions of dollars. And players know that the Johns from Michigan who still want them to get out there and coming up with, hey, I took this to make my ends meet, to keep my job. What if they did the same thing? Sounds reasonable. Players might go for it. Owners might be willing to offer it, but it certainly doesn't seem like there's an environment from which this sort of thing can be delivered and accepted as something as fair. Man, and I didn't want to, spend time like this. This is the side of sports. Like I'd rather, and we're going to talk some football coming up.
Yep.
Right. And in terms of nostalgia, I'm looking at the screen here because I've got the DirecTV split. We're on the campus here of AT&T, and
what's on the mix today?
NBA TV showing Game 5 of the 1994 NBA Finals between the Knicks and the Rockets. And I am keeping my eye peeled on occasion just to see if they have pulled the full broadcast here. And by that I mean
Game 5
on
94.
Occasion it was interrupted by the events going on in Southern California.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It was the day that OJ went into his white Ford Bronco and went on the low-speed chase around Los Angeles. I was in Chicago, Illinois with my parents and some of my friends who had just graduated from the Medill School of Journalism at Northwestern, not knowing that my career would take me, that I was hoping to embark on that day, had no idea, knowing that I would wind up at ESPN. That's what my dream was.
Right.
That I would wind up at ESPN in less than 2 years from that date, and then meet somebody who 9 years removed from that very date I would marry. June 7th is my anniversary.
Oh. June 7th, 2003.
Yes. Wow. Had no idea it was June 7th that this, in 1994, that this took place. I remember being in a bar/restaurant.
June 16th, 1994.
I'm looking, it says June 7th to me. That's what I'm saying right here. Is it June 16th?
Yeah, June
5th?
Yeah, June 16th.
Middle of the month.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I'm looking on, I'm sorry, I guess, go figure, Wikipedia is wrong. But at any rate, here's the deal. I remember watching this game in this bar and getting up every now and then because the Knicks had just gotten finally past the Bulls, the Jordanless Bulls, to bring in the last dance here. And it was game 5 at home, knowing that they had to have this because the next two were in Houston. And I remember going to the television set, and the game was on a small screen in the lower right-hand corner because the full screen was taken up with the OJ low-speed chase, and everybody around me in Chicago, because they were done with the NBA because they could not believe their team was not on the screen participating for the championship. That's funny. Fully knowing that was on the screen in their minds was totally an illegitimate contest for the Larry O'Brien Trophy because Jordan decided to retire. Everybody in that bar had that sensibility, and it pissed me off. And all they wanted to talk about was the OJ low-speed chase. And I remember looking at the screen, and as everybody was just silently stunned at what they were witnessing in the white Ford Bronco, and what I believe Tom Brokaw was talking about.
And Bob were flipping it back and forth to each other.
Okay, as Marv was on the mic in the game. I remember as everyone was totally quiet, I just decided to just have my moment, and I screamed, "Come on!" And everybody looks at me, and I'm like, "That was a flagrant foul!" And they're looking at me like I'm crazy, and honestly, I was the New Yorker.
I know
the
game was in the
hey,
tiny box in the corner.
I understand you're water skiing behind all these championship yachts here in Chicago like you have, but my heart's been ripped out by your stud year after year. I have a chance to win something here. Of course, they won the game and then almost got game 6 in Houston. We all know what happened in game 7. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at that right there, and that's my nostalgia.
Knicks won game 5.
I know they did. I know they won that game, man, and they had it. Pat Riley, and then game 6 they almost had. Starks had a heck of a game 6, too.
Let's see.
Oh, man.
Starks did have a great game 6.
He did.
5 threes, 27 points, 8 assists.
The Geico Give Back is Geico's turn to share with you in the same way that you've been sharing with all of your social media followers and just putting your life on display, and Geico's seen it all. So Geico wants to share with you in the Geico Give Back, which is a 15% credit on car and motorcycle policies for current and new customers. And because Geico's committed for the long haul, the 15% credit lasts your full policy term. Visit geico.com/giveback for information and eligibility. And you can check out our podcast every single day on Podcast One. Yeah, man. Looking at the old garden filled up.
That's great.
Pat's on the sideline.
Well, that's
Rudy
one of the,
T
that's
on
one
the
of the
sideline.
best 30 for 30s is the documentation of that day, June 16th.
It said June 7th right here. That's why I had no idea that it was my future anniversary. But there you have it.
June 17th. Excuse me, June 17th.
So it was June 16th?
It was June 17th.
June 17th. Yeah. Missing the one, I guess. So that's our lineup. American and European football or I guess what the rest of the world calls football, with Rebecca Lowe, NBC Sports Premier League host of the coverage, as the Premier League has made an announcement on a return to play, return to practice, return to being able to get into your facilities and mix it up and tackle and figure out how to stay safe there, and then figure out how the protocols work for a June 17th return with an August filled with championship action. So we'll see how that goes. Expecting to hear that from the NBA sometime soon. We heard from the NHL on a return to play plan. The question is the where and the when. Hey, look, that's why it would be great for baseball to just say, everybody, let's just quiet down. Here's our return to play. We've agreed to this. And then figure out the money that way. Instead of like, we'll give you 110 games. No, we want 82 games. Come up with the return to play. This is where it will be. They must have that in their top left-hand drawer, top right-hand drawer, where it's going to be and how it's going to work. And it's going to go in your home stadiums, and you'll bus around. The Yankees will play the Mets a ton of times, the Red Sox a ton of times. They'll play the Phillies a ton of times. They'll play the Pirates a handful of times to go on to Western Pennsylvania. They'll play the Orioles a ton of times. Just as giving the Yankees possibility. They'll play the Nationals a ton of times. Just let's put it all together.
Yeah, keep it local and
right.
Let's get out there.
Dodgers will play the Padres a ton of times, the Angels a ton of times, the Giants a ton of times. Who doesn't want to see that?
A's,
Diamondbacks.
Mariners,
and let's
Rockies.
just figure out the money after. Give us something to just latch onto. Baseball be smart to do that. Mike Zimmer, Rebecca Lowe, Jim Harbaugh, Andy Reid, and you. 844-204-RICH. 1 hour in the books. We'll see you on NBCSN after this break. I've got my residuals, and if you don't mind, I'd like to crow about my career through my residual checks to you sitting right here. I've got 4 envelopes. Which 1 through 4? You choose. Which one do you think?
Let's pick number 2 first.
Number 2 first.
Yeah.
Here we go. Billy Bob Thornton. Yeah. What's the oldest residual checks that you have?
Probably from like Knots Landing and Matlock, stuff like
Come
that.
on.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
No, I get them for like 13 cents all the time. Yeah, from Matlock.
From Matlock
Oh,
and
yeah.
Knots
It's like
Landing.
one scene or something in the early 80s.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Well, this one is from, let's see, right here. This one is from CSI Miami Caged.
Nice.
I can't believe this is insane, Billy. This is nuts.
Is this
Chris.
a real one?
This is a real one. From syndication, $153.
Wow, nice job. Nice job.
This is a record, Billy.
Wow.
I'm telling you.
I got to open these up more in front of you.
I'm telling you, you could actually afford to send this one in to be cashed.
Sir, usually there must be a decimal point off. It's usually $1.53.
Wow.
Oh, I know, right?
What's Caruso making if I'm making $153?
Exactly.
Here we go. Billy Bob Thornton, you're my good luck charm, man.
I got a bad feeling about this one.
This is for CSI Miami Deep Freeze.
Oh, deep freeze.
Okay, the other episode, Caged, was for $153. Deep Freeze, appropriately named, $3.09,
There
everybody.
you go. And how ironic that your name is Rich.
Yes. Knots Landing, huh? That's the oldest one you got?
Yeah, I was like a friendly rancher or something on there. I had my scene with Ted Shackelford. Yes, that's right.
You were officially called a timberman.
The Timberman?
Yeah, you were a timberman.
Oh, yeah, wow.
On Matlock, you were a pawn shop clerk.
Yeah, pawn shop clerk. I remember that
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
This is The Rich Eisen Show from The Rich Eisen Show studio in Los Angeles.
Ready for it? Ready for it?
Rich Eisen.
Oh, that's Susie Eisenhower.
Thank you. That's why I'm here.
Heard nationwide, televised online at richeisenshow.com.
I only spit truth and deliver advice here that I think is well intended.
Earlier on the show, ESPN MLB insider Jeff Passan. Coming up, Vikings head coach Mike Zimmer, Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh, plus Kansas City Chiefs head coach Andy Reid. And now, it's Rich Eisen.
Hey, everybody. It is a Thursday here in our neighborhood. Last Thursday in May, huh? I mean, we got June right around the corner.
I mean, this year has just gone by so fast.
I am Rich Eisen, and that's the voice of Chris Brockman, who is here because not only is he professional and he's paid to be here, but your presence here means the SpaceX launch got postponed. So I'm glad you're here. Otherwise, you'd have gone on that space ride that we talked so much about yesterday. How are you, Mike Del Tufo?
Thank you.
I thought of you.
Thank you.
By the way, my kids were so
Such a bummer,
disappointed. The
man.
whole family, like
I know.
we were getting set to be around the television and watching a good old space launch like we were back in school.
Yeah,
like
like the old
ourselves.
days, man.
It's shocking. It rained in Florida.
I know, it rained in Florida.
I know,
Never
right?
happens.
I know, and it's been rescheduled for Saturday. Conditions warrant. So
But
we'll
imagine
be,
being in the shuttle, you're ready to go, 15 minutes to launch, and they're like, what's that? Canceled? Say what now?
Because again, back when I would fly in a previous life,
Exactly.
when you're taking off of the plane, I mean, you just think your whole day's ruined. You gotta make arrangements.
Yeah.
I
You have a
mean, you're like,
connection
where
or-
am I gonna go? I was supposed to be here.
Right.
What if space is the place you were supposed to be? How
missed
pissed
that
are you? Because the astronauts couldn't get off. So when's the next launch? 3 days.
Oh, jeez.
Now what?
Thank you.
To use the phrase yesterday.
Vindicated?
Oh my gosh. Well, hey, every day brings a new day. Every hour seems to be a new day, obviously, in our pandemic world. And every day brings a new day, and we're hoping it's a good day in our sports neighborhood. And across the pond, as I'm mandated to say, as an American sports broadcaster, I would have my card removed. There's two things as an American sports broadcaster I have to do. If anything happens in Australia, that sporting event I must say that it's occurring down under. Again, if I don't use that, then my sports casting card gets revoked. And if anything happens in the United Kingdom, it's across the pond, which is amazing because France is also across the pond. We don't say that.
We don't.
We don't say that. Nope. They're on the other side of the Atlantic. Italy's on the other side of the Atlantic. Spain's on the other side of the Atlantic. So is the United Kingdom, but they're across the pond. Across the pond, this is a nice bit of news, certainly for our friends on NBCSN. The Premier League to restart
Hey now.
June 17th.
Let's go.
And again, it's the Premier League. Now then, in a way, what the Premier League did is similar to what the NHL did, which is to announce here's a schedule. And unlike the NHL, though, they said we're returning to practice. They're going to do their due diligence on the health and safety front to get teams back in the facilities and on the pitch, and start things up on June 17th. And then have some championship activity go down in August, FA Cup, and if there's some international travel, Champions League. So let's go. Let's go. Let's get rolling. And again, the idea is here's the schedule, here's how we're rolling, and then, we'll see how everything goes with the virus, and we'll also see how everything goes for teams that are definitely getting relegated. How are they gonna go out there? They're gonna go crush it? Let's leave the competition questions aside. Let's just say yes, that's activity. Yes, let's see how it goes. Yes, thank you for trying. Yes, let's hope everybody is healthy and safe. And yes, let's get it open. and see how it goes. Because the NHL is attempting it. And the NBA, we're waiting to hear lots of conversation about what Adam Silver and the NBA is cooking up. Is everybody going to Disney World? Bringing some family members as well. Allowing players to get together in a bubble community. Bring your family. Everybody start quarantining. Let's get you in there. And let's start playing basketball. And tell Damian Lillard and everybody else who wants a shot at the 8th seed because they were deep down in the conference standings, we'll have a tournament, just like what the NHL is doing. Great idea. Let's get everybody back there, and I will hope, against hope, if I'm in the Western Conference, that the Golden State Warriors say, you know what, we're done. Because if they are forced to come back and they're pissed, and Klay Thompson's healthy, and Curry's healthy, and Wiggins is mixed in with Draymond Green, they will be the most dynamite, poorest rated seeded team in the history of any tournament. But again, we'll talk about it. It'll be, it'll be something to talk about. The NFL has weeks to figure this thing out. And hopefully whatever conversations are going on between the NBA and its Players Association, the NHL and its Players Association, the NFL is already beginning to start, hopefully, with its Players Association, who prior to the pandemic, they struck a 10-year labor agreement. Knocking on wood for that. Could you imagine if that agreement wasn't agreed to, what the conversations between the league and the Players Association might be right now? Well, yeah, you can get an idea. Just take a look at baseball. Because the level of trust going on right now between owners and players is at an all-time, well, I shouldn't say all-time low. It's at a pretty bad place. And nadir, as I used to say back in my English class days.
Big word alert, Rich.
It's a low point. It's at its lowest point.
We needed to know over
here. Like you're knocking on the door of the core of the earth. Like, hello, it's getting a little hot in here. Are we near a molten mass that's at the center of this large rock? I've said it before, I've said it again. Baseball cannot throw its hands up and say, we're not playing because we couldn't figure out the money. Every single human being that's rooting for sports to come back would accept the idea of we're not coming back because we could not figure out how to handle things on the virus front. Even though other teams or other leagues are attempting it or figuring out how to attempt it. Right now, baseball is mired in the good old-fashioned finger-pointing blame game over money that fans, I think, if you had to list the things you liked about sports the least, arguing over money, to use the old Family Feud phrase, that's your number one answer. It definitely would be on the board towards the top. So, on that front, you're hearing that the baseball players received baseball's opening foray of a pitch to them to accept something other than the deal that they made back in March, which was to prorate their salaries based on how many games are played. That was not received well by baseball players. Max Scherzer, who is a Scott Boras client, we'll talk about the reason why I mentioned that in a second. He said that the proposal that was received by the players, quote, no reason to engage with MLB in any further compensation reductions. Again, we have previously negotiated a pay cut in the version of prorated salaries, and there's no justification to accept a second pay cut based on the current information the union has received. I'm glad to hear other players voicing the same viewpoint and believe MLB's economic strategy would completely change if all documentation were to become public information. The old saw of open the books, which brings back a 2011 NFL lockout flashback so bad for me, I almost am going to grow all the hair that I lost during it back. Now, you know how you receive one of those alerts on your phone, right?
Right.
You get an alert on your phone,
Pops
you
up.
open it up, and only the first couple of lines appear on your screen.
Mm-hmm.
So then you open the rest of it up. So I got one yesterday saying, Reds pitcher Trevor Bauer blasts, ...
Oh.
And I was ready to blast Major League Baseball, right?
Right. Teams.
Nope. He blasts Scott Boras. The agent, Scott Boras, he tells him to stay out of union business. The first half of his tweet was very passive-aggressive, saying he's hearing rumors about a certain player agent meddling in Major League Baseball Players Association affairs. If true, and at this point there's only rumors, I have one thing to say, ... Scott Boras, rep your clients however you want to, but keep your damn personal agenda out of union business. So he went very passive-aggressive in the first half of his tweet and then very aggressive with the last 140 characters. Why is he blasting Scott Boras? Well, shortly before we came on the air, the Associated Press, you've heard of them, right?
I have.
They obtained an email that Scott Boras sent to his clients. Now, we had Scott on last week, as everybody heard on this show, youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show, Sirius XM Channel 211, NBCSN. I kept on saying, well, what's the conversation going on right now between the union and the owners? And he kept on not talking about what's going on right now. How many times did he talk about the March agreement, about prorated salaries?
Several times.
Many times, to the point where I basically had to say, well, if you're saying March, baseball's saying May now. Are you saying that what baseball said in March is still operative? Because baseball's saying it's not operative anymore. And that's what he said, I'm not part of the union. Well, the Associated Press obtained this email that Boras sent to his clients telling them, don't budge. Remember, games cannot be played without you, Boras wrote to his clients. Players should not agree to further pay cuts to bail out the owners. Let owners take some of their record revenues and profits from the past several years and pay you the prorated salaries you agreed to accept, or let them borrow against the asset values they created from the use of those profits players generated. And what he is basically saying is the reason why owners would lose money on this year isn't because of the revenues lost because there are no fans. He's saying it would not allow them to make nearly as much money to pay the debt off that they were allowed by MLB to take on. The owners' current problem is a result of the money they borrowed when they purchased their franchises, renovated their stadiums, or developed land around their ballparks. This type of financing is allowed and encouraged by MLB because it has resulted in significant franchise valuations. Owners now want players to take additional pay cuts to help them pay these loans. They want a bailout, says Scott Boras. Cue Trevor Bauer's tweet. Cue more of the fingers and the pointing and the recriminations. And I will say
Not
this.
connecting.
I will say this again. Figure it out. Figure it out. Because emails being obtained, leaked, or obtained. I'm sorry, just something got in me.
Yeah.
Or owners making an opening foray that they feel was in good faith negotiating, which is in the language of the contract that they did make back, or a deal that they made back in March, as Jeff Passan, ESPN senior baseball insider, told us in our first hour of our program that you can check out on our YouTube stream. He called it repulsive because he knew that players would have that sense. We don't want to know. Here's what baseball should do, because I like suggesting. I don't just like blasting for clicks. Here's what baseball should do. They must have because Jeff Passan mentioned they want spring training open by June 10th, right? They must have some form of a schedule that they've put together, right? At least the owners and the players agree to what the NHL has done, and now the Premier League has done, and what we're expecting the NBA to do, and what the NFL's already done. Put out a schedule. Put out a schedule. Let us look at this schedule, and sure, we'll look at it and say, how possible is this? Because they can't figure out the money. But at least we'll start talking about baseball. Yankees, Mets, opening things up. Yankees, Red Sox opening things up. Agree to that. Do that. Let us in the media and fandom chew on this while you figure it out, because you can't throw your hands up and say, we couldn't figure out the money. That is a non-starter. And for any owners out there who might be taking in this show thinking that we'll get through it, I'm not losing that much money for 2020. Well, you better start thinking about 2021, because a vaccine's going to hit at some point, and we're all going to want to start watching sports again at some point. And my kids are going to want to say, let's go to a game at some point. And if you don't play because you couldn't figure out the money and we watched every other sport open up, guess who's not coming? Guess who won't forget? I don't think that's a threat. I think I'm talking brass tacks of what fans are thinking.
That's real.
People who call 844-204-RICH every day. We had a guy last hour call from the state of Michigan. He said he took a 20% pay cut from General Motors to keep his job that's going to be deferred, paid back in one lump sum with interest. And he said, I don't have a date by which I'm going to get that paid back, but I know it's coming my way, and maybe players could do that. That's a fan. So let's get it together. Now then, a lot of football on the brain, and why not? We love the sport. That's what I'm all about, too. Working with NFL Network since 2003. Can't wait to get back into a studio doing regular Sunday morning shows and stuff like that. Want a season. And we have not one, not two, but three football coaches on the program. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, Mike Zimmer of the Minnesota Vikings will join us. Jim Harbaugh, top of our final hour, will join us from the great city of Ann Arbor, Michigan. He will join us. We'll talk about the possibility of playing football this year. The Michigan school president said to the Wall Street Journal that is a doubt in his mind. And Andy Reid will join us in the final hour. Rebecca Lowe on the back end of this hour to talk about the return of what the rest of the world calls football. Okay, we're back with Mike Zimmer in a moment. All right, I've been told there's an official statement from the Premier League in my email inbox, and I appreciate them for actually taking the time to do that. Oh, it's not an actual personal letter.
Oh, it didn't come right to you, Rich? Come on.
No, it was just forwarded by Don. It was forwarded by NBC to him.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's okay.
Yep. The Premier League shareholders, that's what they call it, because you know the NFL calls their owners the membership.
Right. And the fixtures.
The shareholders today agreed to a new provisional restart date. Again, it's provisional. Just like my better golf drive.
Second shot off the tee.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Man, you should have let Brady hit a provisional. Come on, man.
Him and Manning should have got breakfast balls off the first tee.
You know how many provisionals Stuart Scott used to hit?
Provisional.
That might have been his middle name.
Stuart Provisional Scott.
Dude.
Provisional.
Me.
Oh, gosh. There we go. Aston Villa versus Sheffield United and Manchester City versus Arsenal now take place on 17 June.
Yeah, that'll bring
followed by a full match round beginning on Friday, 19 June.
Yeah, those teams are playing first because they're a match behind everybody else.
Right. And then it's going to be played behind closed doors. That makes sense.
Yeah, no fans.
Premier League shareholders also approved a proposal that would see all 92 remaining matches broadcast live in the UK by the league's existing broadcast partners. There you go. No fans in stadiums. That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
The Premier League and our clubs are proud to have incredibly passionate and loyal supporters, says the Premier League Chief Executive Richard Masters. The planned kickoff times in the UK for live matches will also differ from the traditional times. So, and of course, the Brits have to put things in, the old Greenwich times. I have no idea what the hell. Don't make me do math. I told you I'm more verbal than doing math.
It's 9 hours.
Is that what I know? Is it
Greenwich Mean?
Yeah, I guess so. Well, Greenwich Mean, Friday at 20 o'clock. That means 8 o'clock their time.
Right.
We're talking
Yeah.
11 a.m. our time,
Yeah.
right? 2 p.m. Is it 6 hours or 5 hours now? See, I don't even know.
3.
Oh,
You're getting
less.
me confused.
By the way, right now, what you look like right
6.
now is Brady counting his shots on the second hole the other day. You know, one of these. You just did one.
8
of them.
hours. We're
No, I
we're
just-
8 hours behind London.
Okay,
Yeah,
which
behind
means
London.
means the East
3,
Coast is
6 plus
5.
2.
Right.
All right. Well, on Friday at 8 o'clock, which means that would mean, okay, I'm just trying to do the math to see if we get preempted off of NBCSN for some of these things. Can't have that. Can't have Mike Del Tufo's pearls of wisdom preempted by Arsenal.
No, we can't.
Mike Del Tufo's arsenal of words can't be preempted by Arsenal Football Club. All right, Mike Zimmer when we come back. Eight 844-204-RICH is the number to dial. We will take your phone calls here on the Rich Eisen Show. The Super Bowl champion head coach Andy Reid will join us in the final hour. Jim Harbaugh of the University of Michigan. So we'll talk some more pro and college football action. Rebecca Lowe will be joining us in about 20 minutes' time to talk about the provisional return of the Premier League with their provisional schedule that they put out overnight here in the United States. And later on today, a big vote in the NFL about possibly giving coaches the opportunity to go for it on a one single shot from your own 25 on 4th and 15 to maintain possession of the ball after you've scored. So instead of an onside kick, give you an opportunity to just wing it in the air. To discuss that and everything else going on in the National Football League, the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, now in his 7th season as such, Mike Zimmer back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Coach?
Hi, Rich. How you doing?
Everybody got fine in your neck of the woods, in your world, healthy?
Yeah, everybody's doing well. We're quarantined here in Kentucky.
Is that where? So you're zooming in from Kentucky right now, Coach?
Yep, I'm in Kentucky. I'm sitting in my bedroom overlooking the little lake that we have.
Okay, so instead of I don't mean to make a dad joke to start, but instead of zooming, does your team call it zimming? Is that what they do it?
Yeah, I think we're on Microsoft Teams.
Okay,
not Zoom.
I'm sorry. I should know my partnership for the NFL. I should know that. I might lose something out of my my paycheck this week. I should know that. But so, what is this like though? Doing this? I mean, you're sitting in Kentucky trying to coach a football team in the NFC North. We're now in May. What in the world is this like for you?
Yeah, it's strange, but it really has been good. The meetings have been good. I've been able to sit in with the offense. We stagger, so the offense has their meetings, and then the defense, special teams, and then the defense. And so I'm able to sit in on really all the different phases, which would be harder to do if we were meeting all at the same time. But it's been good for me. The meetings have gone well. I've been impressed with the way our coaches have set up the meetings and the installations and things like that. The most disappointing thing is that you can coach these guys on the playbook, but once you can't get them on the field and then show them exactly how to do it. You can tell them what to do, but you can't show them how to do it. So that's the next step whenever we are able to get back to the facilities that we're excited about.
I mean, are you using from your coaching playbook what happened in 2011? Again, it's somewhat similar to that. I mean, obviously a pandemic is much more serious than a labor dispute, but it sounds like some of the language I heard during the lockout year of 2011.
Yeah, it really is a little bit like that. I'm one of the only guys that remember it, I think. But yeah, it's a little bit like that. But now we didn't have all the computers where you're able to use the Microsoft Teams and the different virtual meetings that we did back now that we didn't able to do back then.
So, and again, just walk me through. I mean, are you sitting there and going from one team room to another team room? I mean, how do you as a head coach, keep your finger in every single spot from Kentucky?
Yeah, typically we meet together as an offense first, and we talk about the run game, and then the offensive line leaves and goes to another room virtually, I guess, and then we'll sit in with the skill players and talk about the pass plays, predominantly protections, things like that. And then we have a team meeting where the whole entire team comes in. We'll talk to them about situational football. Or today we did a presentation. I did a presentation on red zone, and then the special teams meets for 30 minutes, and then we'll have a defensive meeting where we'll sometimes we have virtual walkthroughs, sometimes we have like today we did a protection tape on how offenses block different protections and things like that. So we're able to get a lot of that stuff done, which is good. And again, obviously we'll have to hit it a few more times before we get ready to play a real game. But I think that part has been good.
Mike Zimmer here on the Rich Eisen Show, and again, I'm sure you're learning more about public health than you ever thought you'd have to learn as a head coach or a coach in any sport, let alone the NFL. Here, what are you hearing about your protocols once you can get back into your facility here, and when do you think that happens?
Yeah, well, I'm very fortunate that Eric Sugarman, our trainer, is the head of one of the committees. They have several committees while they're trying to figure out exactly the process that we go through and the different things that you have to do. But, we're preparing like we're going to get ready to go for a regular training camp. It may not happen that way. We'll just have to adapt to it. But we're preparing like it's going to be just a normal season. Now, obviously, I'm sure there will be other protocols. You get tested for the COVID-19. Maybe on game day, they're talking about a lot of different things. But getting your temperature checked when you walk into the building. So there's a lot of different things that they're talking about, but not really anything that has been set in stone yet.
Are you just saying that you might be preparing yourself to figure out your active, inactive list, waiting for a point of access blood test to return? Like, is that a possibility for you, what you're talking about, Coach?
Yeah, well, I don't think it'd be a blood test. I think it'd be more of a saliva test from what I understand. But again, they have to get all these testing procedures figured out and how to do it. I don't think anybody wants to have the stick going up your nose. So they're working on all those types of things in order to get that. But yeah, there's a possibility. If somebody tests positive on the day of the game, that he's going to have to go quarantine for 14 days. But we're all hopeful right now that we get the vaccine done, we get the tests all squared away, and we get back to work because this is what we love to do, and we'd love to have fans back in there. Our fans in Minnesota are outstanding, and it would basically suck to play without fans, but we'll do whatever we have to do.
Mike Zimmer here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's talk about your draft. Were you surprised Justin Jefferson was available for you to snag there, 22nd overall?
Yeah, Rich, I think every coach and GM always says we were surprised that he was there when they picked him, but we really were this time. We didn't think he would slide down that far to us, and we were very fortunate. We had a group of guys there, but he was the guy that we really wanted. He's an outstanding receiver. He's great on the contested catches. He's able to run all kinds of different routes from different positions, and we felt like he was really pro-ready as he came in there.
And then obviously you were somebody who made a deal with San Francisco. Sitting there, you had the 25th overall pick. Walk me through the decision to make that move. Is that something where you just moving around the draft board because you thought the guy that you were going to choose eventually at 31st overall would still be there? Was Gladney a guy you were going to take at 25? Walk me through that process. Yeah,
typically, Rich, what happens is Rick Spielman, Rob Brzezinski, and George Payton are the guys that are making all the calls throughout the course of the draft. And we got to that point where we were picking 25th. There was an opportunity where there was 3 or 4 guys there, so we felt like Gladney was going to be there. But if not, we had a couple other options that we would have went to. We were fortunate that he fell down to us, and sometimes collecting more draft capital is probably more important. If you got 2 or 3 guys, whether it be an offensive lineman or a tight end or whatever position, if you got 3 or 4 guys sitting there and you feel like you can move back 5 or 6 spots, you can get some more draft capital, which can help your football team.
Well, I mean, if just hear me out here, coaches. So by making that deal, San Francisco goes and grabs Ayuk out of Arizona State, who again,
which we liked a lot.
I'm
which
sure
we
you.
liked a lot
I'm
too.
sure, but you,
Yep.
but you also, grabbed your guy in Justin Jefferson before. But the reason why I'm bringing all this up is that might have been a guy that could have been available for Green Bay, for instance. Just throwing that team out there because they then traded up to go get Jordan Love, which I don't know if you've noticed has created a bit of a stir within your division. Do you think you might have wound it up a little bit here by making that trade deep down? Is there? What do you think?
Rich, I'm going to go political on you, and I only care about what we do.
Oh, come on now. Come on now. Because there seems to be a bit of a hornet's nest that got kicked over within your division. Coach, what do you think?
Well, yeah, everybody's got to do what they feel is best interest in their organization. To me, Aaron Rodgers is a great, great player. Every week preparing for him is extremely difficult. He's so good at everything he does. He's so smart. He sees blitzes and everything like that. And he's always, and he's a great player. So, but they have to do what they have to do, and we have to do what we have to do. And
sure,
hopefully it comes out our way when we play him opening day.
Well, certainly if they want to kick the tires on a young guy and sit him, right? You'd be all for that in Minnesota, right?
Yeah, no problem with me. They could play him if they want.
Jordan Love, you're talking about, right? Not Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Sure. Let's just figure out when your first time you take. Right. Let's just figure out the first time. Opening weekend wouldn't be a bad spot too in your building, right? See what you got in him.
Yeah, that'd be a great spot.
Oh man, we're just lingering in a somewhat serious way on this subject. Were you surprised to see that pick? As you were going about your business for 31st overall, you look up and you see that the Packers chose a quarterback in that spot?
Well, I think, they moved up to get him, so I suppose that we were surprised. Jordan Love's a good player. We had high grades on him as well.
You did.
I was talking to Parcells, I talked to him quite honest, quite often, and,
yes.
He said, well, he said that's really not a bad idea to go out there and get another young quarterback and be prepared for if something does happen or things like that. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. We're just more concerned about whoever stopping Aaron Rodgers, I guess, would be the best way to say it.
I guess it would. Mike Zimmer of the Minnesota Vikings here on the Rich Eisen Show. And again, you are from the Parcells tree. When was the first time you met him? When was the first time you met him, Coach?
When he got hired. Actually, there was he was back working out, and I was in the facility. It was a Saturday morning, I believe. And he came in, or I was working out, and then I came back, and on my desk there was a note that said, "See me, BP." So his office was right next door to mine, and so that was really the first time I met him. I went in there and we talked, and I said, what do you want to know about me? And he said, nothing. I know all about you and this and that. And then I said, well, I'm supposed to go duck hunting this weekend at Jerry Jones's. What do you want to do? He said, you're free to look around for another job. And I said, well, when will you know? And he said, in a couple of weeks, probably. And I said, okay. So I went down duck hunting. The next day I got a phone call down at the duck hunting lodge, and it was him calling. And he says to me, you want this job here? And I said, yeah. I said, why didn't you tell me yesterday? He said, I just want to make sure you wanted it.
So this was in Dallas when he was hired in Dallas, and you were a holdover, right? Is that what you're saying? And he showed up and
right,
and kind of put you through a test about wanting a job to stick with him, essentially.
Right, exactly.
Huh. Well, I guess you passed the test, huh?
Well, I don't know. We're pretty good friends now. We talk every Monday morning. When the phone rings at 6 a.m., he calls, and I know it's him, and we talk about the game, and he talks about things I could have done better, obviously, or things I did well. And then, and then we just talk time to time. I actually went down to saw him last spring. I went down to Florida, and we went to his golf country club, and we drew a bunch of things up on napkins. So that was kind of fun. But he's a great mentor for me. He's he's hard on all of his coaches, but he for some reason I guess he took a liking to me.
Well, I mean, everybody that I've worked with that's played on a team with you coaching on it says nothing but the highest of regard for you. Literally, I mean, like Deion Sanders. I know when he sat in for me, he called you up, he had you on. I mean, Deion thinks the absolute world of you. Is he the biggest character you've ever been on the same team with or coached?
We have some great stories. I was sitting here the other day, my neighbors came down and we were talking about it, and I said, let me call him. So I told a bunch of stories, and I called Deion and put him on speaker, and he told the exact same stories in the exact same manner that I did. So we have a great time when we talk, and who would ever thought that Deion and I would be good friends, and
he
him
loves you.
coming from his background. Yeah, and I love him too. He's just funny, and he's a terrific person.
He is. So your neighbors in Kentucky are like, hold on, let me just get Deion on the phone to back up what I'm saying, and then of course he picks up and he backs up what you're saying. That's what he does.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. I mean, we have enough stories between us that
I'm sure
we can tell the true ones all the way around. There's no inflating any of these.
So let me just ask you this before I let you go. What do you think of the rule of 4th and 15 that you'd be able to go for it once and maintain possession of the ball, or from your perspective as a defensive-minded coach, having to defend such a thing to maybe lock a game up? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm against it, Rich, and I think part of the reason is there's if you get a pass interference, it's automatic first down. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen there that and I'm a traditionalist anyway. I like football the way it is for the most part, but that's just my opinion of how it is. But if they pass it and that's how we have to defend it, then we'll go about our business and we'll work like crazy to get it stopped.
But even you do the math right now. It's about 10.5% chance, 11% chance of you getting an onside kick. Much better chance for say Kirk Cousins to go find Thielen or Kyle Rudolph as he did in the end zone in New Orleans. It would benefit you too, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I guess, but we've worked so hard to get to the league is so tough. You work so hard to get to a situation where they have to kick an onside kick, where your defense gets a little bit of a rest, and then you got to, but they score. Let's say they score, and obviously our job is not let them score. But if they do score, then the defense has to go out there again and try and get them stopped. And it could have been a 10-play drive or whatever it was. But I just feel like maybe they should change the onside kick rule somehow or something like that. But it's just weird to me. Okay, 4th and 15. Let's have one more play. All right. So, but we'll, if that's the way it is,
sure,
then we'll go out and we'll defend it.
Well, and I guess to bring this conversation completely full circle, it seems like many, many moons ago, the free agency or the new league year, I'll ask you the question, if you don't mind, that I get asked a lot. What happened with Stephon Diggs? Why did Diggs have to go from Minnesota?
Well, honestly, Diggs did not have to go. We really didn't have any intention on trading him. Quite honestly, he put out a couple tweets, and there's some things going on there. But Stephon works extremely hard. He practices like crazy. He wants the ball like all receivers do. And really, what happened was Buffalo came in and gave us all those picks, and we were up against it on the salary cap, and so we just felt like we could save some money, get a bunch of picks, maybe get a new, a young receiver like JJ that we got. So, I wish him well. He's a good kid. He worked hard for me. He was, really, if you said somebody was a pain in the butt, you probably wouldn't say him. So I've been around way worse guys than him. And I think he's, I hope he has a great career and finishes up strong.
Mike Zimmer, really appreciate the time. You stay safe in Kentucky, and I look forward to the time where you can get back in your facility with your team and play some football. I look forward to that.
Same to you, Rich. Stay healthy, and thanks for calling.
You got it. Thank you. That's Mike Zimmer, the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. We'll take a break. Rebecca Lowe will join us. We'll talk about what the rest of the world calls football. The Premier League returning. We're back in a moment. Don Bowie told me in my ear during the conversation there, is that true? The Vikings have never hosted Green Bay to start a season? That's never happened.
How about that?
Green Bay's never once visited Minnesota to start a season. I know the opposite's true because I attended that game in 2003. I was yet to be on the air. NFL Network did not start until the first weekend in November of that season, of the 2003 season. I'd yet to move out to California from the East Coast. And I got a call saying the commissioner of the NFL would like you to attend the opener with him in Lambeau Field if you were so inclined. I was inclined.
Hey, now.
I was inclined.
How's
and
that?
I went to Minnesota at Green Bay. And the reason why the commissioner was there was because Lambeau Field had just been renovated.
Oh, that's right.
They opened up, I guess, the new Green Bay Museum and all that stuff.
And they add seating?
And Dante Culpepper went in and beat the Packers. And it was a surprise in 2003.
2003, okay.
Yeah.
2003.
So I was there. I think it was Culpepper. Had to have been, right? 2003?
Yeah, let me take a look.
Yeah. It was Culpepper because he had yet to leave there for Miami to make the decision to go with him over Breeze. At any rate, I remember flying back and Joe Brown,
Oh, yeah.
the right-hand man, the keeper of the flame in the NFL. He's such an old guard NFL guy. New York guy with a serious, hard-edged sense of humor because it was such a surprise that Minnesota beat Green Bay. He asks me in the plane, he goes, Rich, did you have Green Bay in your suicide pool? Because as you know, as an NFL employee, you're not allowed to
He's trying to trap you?
in front of Tagliabue.
Wow. That's entrapment, Joe. Come on now.
And I said to him, Joe, I'm not in that. I don't know what you're talking
I don't know
about.
what that means.
What do you mean? What do you mean? I'm alive. I'm with you on the plane.
By the way, Randy Moss had a day.
They were stunned
They had
in
a
Lambeau,
day.
man.
So Culpepper had 3 touchdowns, only 195 yards, 150 of it to Randy Moss.
Dude, that was a day.
4
And
picks for
They
Favre.
spoiled a big day for Green Bay.
Oh, man.
They spoiled a big day for Green Bay. Put me in the category of not shocked, not surprised that Mike Zimmer is not into the idea of giving the opponent one shot from its own 25 to go for it on one shot on 4th and 15 to keep the football against him.
Right?
Color me shocked. Had he said, I kind of dig that.
Yeah.
Says the guy who says the first person he hears from after every single weekend during the season is Bill Parcells at 6 in the morning. I enjoyed that little tidbit from Mike
funny.
Zimmer.
Good stuff there.
So we're, again, every single time we have a conversation about the NFL, it definitely is in my mind and many people's mind through the prism of let's hope we have a season. Because who the hell knows, right? We're hoping, we believe that there will be an attempt at it. Who knows? Every single time I wake up and I hear news that this sport or that sport's attempting to come back, I love hearing that. And then you hear a sport say, here's a schedule. Here's something to look forward to. We're letting people back in facilities. We're going to try and give this a go. And by date certain. The Premier League announcing that there's a schedule, calling it provisional, a provisional restart date for the 2019-2020 season, the 17th of June. Usually provisional is the word that is used for my best tee shot in the world of golf. but I'll take this. I'll take this. And the host of Premier League action on NBC and all of its family of networks. Pleased to have on the show after, I believe, for the very first time, Rebecca Lowe. How are you, Rebecca?
It's a pleasure to be on, indeed, for the first time, Rich. Thank you very much for having me.
I'm so pleased to have you here. I'm so pleased for the reason why you're on here.
Yeah.
I give you the floor on what this announcement means, Rebecca.
Okay. Well, first of all, just hearing you talk about that, it just gets me so excited. Just about an hour ago, we got official news. You know what these things are like. It did get leaked a little more than an hour ago, but official news from the Premier League. The restart date, as you say, Wednesday, June the 17th for the Premier League, which is provisional, providing that all safety requirements are in place at every club. Now, there are 92 games left to play in the 2019-2020 season, Rich, and what they're going to do is pack them in big time. We think that they're going to have them way more often on your television than you're used to. I mean, we already over here in the US show every game, but over in the UK, they're planning on showing every single game across the 4 broadcast partners, BT, BBC, Sky, and Amazon Prime. And that's never happened in the history of soccer in the UK. And the reason, of course, is that fans are not allowed to go to the games. So the matches will be behind closed doors, and therefore, in order for people to see them, every single game has to be on television. Now, normally, just to give you some context, on an average weekend in the UK, there are 10 matches played, and 5 of them are on television. The other 5 all kick off at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, and you can't see the highlights of those until Saturday night. That's going to change for the rest of this season, starting June 17th. Every single game will be available to watch through the broadcast partners in the UK, and it is giving everyone an absolutely massive lift at a time, I think, where desperation, let's be honest, Rich, was starting to creep in. We need positivity. We need lifting. And we can be both concerned, and we can be both very, very clear with making sure all few things are in place, but we can also be super happy and super excited, as you can hear in my voice.
I can hear it in your voice.
We love so much is coming back.
What you just described, Rebecca, is huge, and I just want to kind of bring it into perspective for my show's audience, and certainly you over there, Chris Brockman, is because I was, by the way, first of all, you don't have to say the words games in soccer, please. You don't have to. You don't have to Americanize it. That's number one.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
No, please. But I was in a pub in London because I was in town to call one of the American football games. And I remember I'm with my friend dropping off some tickets for him for that Buccaneers and Panthers game. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching people watch a television show where people are just talking about the Premier League.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, what is this? And he's explaining to me that the action is blacked out.
Yeah.
And you can't see any highlights until later on that night. And I'm like, that's absurd. That would not fly with the NFL. I can tell you that in America. So you're saying that now they're just saying, screw it. We're just going to start showing everything as it's happening, which has to be a festival for fans of the Premier League.
I mean, they're saying screw it just for the rest of this season, but it's actually a law. I'm fairly certain it's a law in the UK. And the reason is, Rich, that if you show every game in the Premier League, you have to remember that below the Premier League, Rich, there are at least another 4. Well, there are 4 professional leagues below the Premier League. It's a pyramid.
Yes.
And then another 6 below that who are semi-pro. So if you're starting to show every single game, then those other leagues, people won't go to their local team who are lower down the pyramid and watch the game because they're on the same time. They'll stay home and watch Premier League. So the show that you're talking about is called Soccer Saturday, which is on Sky, one of our partners, and nobody ever thought that would work. They were like, hang on a second, you're going to have 4 guys watching TV and we're going to watch the 4 guys watching TV?
Right.
That's never going to work. But my goodness, does it work? It's one of the most popular shows, and it wouldn't work for the NFL because the horse is already bolted. You guys you already show all the games. You already do that. So you guys, the NFL and TV go hand in hand. Football, I should say, started in the 1880s in the UK. So it happened way before anybody ever watched it. So, but yes, they're going to say screw it. They're going to do it for the rest of this season. But when next season starts, 2020, 2021, probably September, it will revert well, actually, I say that, although I would have thought that the fans won't be allowed in for the rest of this calendar year. So watch this space. Perhaps this will continue all the way up until they allow fans back in, which will be a huge amount of games and a huge amount of shows.
Rebecca Lowe, NBC Sports Premier League host here on the Rich Eisen Show, and you're talking about that pyramid, and that's kind of what I want to hit you with here, because there is no relegation in the National Football League, much to the delight of, I guess, I'll say it, Bengals fans, Jets fans, right? There's no such thing as relegation, but there is in the Premier League. How is that going to affect, like, when we're getting back out there to compete? You know, Liverpool is running away with it right now. What is the competition going to be like? Because I'm sure there are some football clubs that are not too thrilled about getting out there and having the threat of relegation hang over them for this.
Oh, indeed. I mean, I think over the past few weeks, Rich, you've seen a little bit of self-serving going on with quotes that have come out of certain clubs sort of saying, oh, maybe we should just, null and void the season. Maybe that's just the cleanest, quickest way that we could just all move on.
Right.
And then you look at who this person is who's talking and you're like, oh, I wonder why they're saying that. So there has been an issue with that. I do think, though, overall the pressure has been that cannot happen and we have to complete this season. So everybody has fallen into line. And relegation will continue to happen. So, come the end of the season, 3 clubs will be relegated. And as long as the division below has managed to restart, 3 clubs will be promoted from there, just normal. But at least they won't be shouted at and screamed at by their own fans in the stadium when they get relegated. That's the only silver lining.
That is a silver lining. Okay, so then just ballpark it for me, Rebecca. Do you think this is feasible, knowing what you know about how the mechanics of getting a club ready for action and getting out there and whatever travel would be required and the possibility that they're talking about an FA Cup and then obviously Champions League action should international travel happen? I mean, how much of expectation should our levels be raised here, do you think?
I'm positive. I think it's feasible. They're going to play in their own grounds. There was talk about having neutral venues, but I think they are going to play in their own grounds. In terms of travel, Spain have just lifted their travel ban, and they're about 3 weeks behind the UK. So the UK has some catching up to do. Of course, that I don't think the Champions League will happen until August anyway, by which time I should have thought the UK will have lifted their travel ban. In terms of kind of how much time the players need to get back to fitness, this is so unprecedented, Rich. Kind of these players are so used to playing, August round to May. It gets stopped in March. They've all been training at home, but obviously only so much you can do. And now they've only just started contact training yesterday, touching each other on the training ground yesterday. So they're going to get 3 weeks of essentially high-level training before they play. I would have thought a lot of managers are saying that's not enough. Some managers just want to get going. But ultimately, I think that the Premier League wanted it to happen sooner and the clubs wanted it to happen later, so they've compromised with a 3-week window. And everyone's in the same boat. At the end of the day, they've just got to do their absolute best. There is a worry about injuries. There is a worry. And if you look at the Bundesliga, they've had some muscle injuries in the first few match weeks. So there is that worry. But at some point, Rich, we've got to get out there. We've got to try and get this thing moving because we haven't got all the time in the world. There are people relying on this for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah, of course. No doubt. And I know watching some Bundesliga, just no fans. And it's weird, but it's something that's got to happen as long as the action on the pitch looks like the real deal and is the real deal and the competition is just as intense. Let's go, right?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And if you look at the Bundesliga, that is the case. I mean, the way that they play football on the pitch and the sort of strangeness we feel watching it, everyone adapts. The great thing about human beings, Rich, is we all adapt. Whether you're watching it and you find it jarring at the beginning, a few weeks in, it'll be the new normal watching it. Same with the players. They'll find it weird for a bit, then it'll become normal. That's the great thing about the human race. We know how to adapt, and then fingers crossed, in the not too distant future, everything can go back to normal, and then we will readapt the other way. So I'm very positive about it, and I think that when people first see that very first game and they remind themselves of the beauty that is football, they won't care. They just want to watch the game.
So how fast, Rebecca, will flopping just be called social distancing? How fast? What do you think?
Well, in all seriousness, there are people hoping, I think this is a little far-fetched, but there are people hoping that those kind of things that you call flopping, we call diving, and the kind of lacking of sportsmanship will go out of the game based on the background to what's going on in the world, do we really need to be seeing players diving around and hitting their little toe and then crying and rolling around? There are people saying, this is going to change football and the players are not going to do that.
Come on.
I'm not so sure.
No, come on. Come on. As long as there is competition involving a human being who acts as an arbiter, whether you call him a referee or her a referee or an umpire, there will always be another human being attempting to elicit a call that they do not deserve. That doesn't matter what's going on.
Who doesn't love a good flop anyway? Who doesn't love a good flop? Let's be honest.
You are not wrong. Rebecca Lowe, a pleasure having you on, and I look forward to making this on the regular, as they would say.
Lovely. Thank you, Rich. Take care. Have a great day.
Cheers. That's Rebecca Lowe. Here on the Rich Eisen Show. I wasn't flopping. I was just, giving the 6 feet.
That's pretty funny.
I was giving the 3 meters. Is that what it is?
2 meters.
I don't know.
Less
shouldn't
than
even.
2 meters.
The last thing I should
Less
be
than 2
attempting to do on live television is math, let alone the metric system. How was it? Come on.
3 meters. That's almost 10 feet.
Right? So. Then the guy comes out with the spray bottle. By the way, in my my backyard, we've been playing as I'll share World Cup.
Okay.
In my backyard, where we each choose a team. One kid's in goal, which is in between 2 parts of the fence posts. Mm-hmm. Okay. And we have to say our team name as we're scoring.
All right.
Okay. My team, I've been Israel. Okay. Susie's Argentina. Xander is is England. Cooper's France, and my daughter's USA. This is what we do. And whenever one kid gets hurt and they go down, I come out with a spray bottle.
Magic spray.
Like it works. It works on TV.
Yeah. Of course.
Kids don't find that funny. Go figure.
They don't?
No, doesn't work. Jim Harbaugh of the University of Michigan and Andy Reid of the Kansas City Chiefs and you in our final hour. Mike Del Tufo is standing at a microphone that's about, I'd say, 20 feet away.
Yep.
Looking right at Mr. Wonderful of Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank. Go for it, Mike Del Tufo.
What happens if, something happens to me and 2,500 miles away, my family's there, and they don't know? I could be sitting in the apartment alone, dead for days. So I came up with an idea for an app called Just In Case that would be basically you download it, and you could check in with this app, and other people could see that, A, you're alive still. You could basically be tracked with it.
Just to get the whole story, before I completely eviscerate you.
Go ahead.
How would you make money doing this?
You do a subscription per month.
People are going to pay per month.
99 cents per month. Very cheap.
If your mom calls you for 2 days and doesn't get an answer, she's probably going to call the super and say, go check on his corpse. Think about it. They don't need 99 cents a month for that.
But in theory, wouldn't you want, if it's something you don't have to do?
Mike.
Other people can check in.
When you're dead, you're dead. Who cares?
How does the app know you're dead?
The app doesn't know you're dead.
You have to tell it you're not dead.
The app would tell you that you're not checking in. Every time you unlock your phone, it would ping, and you put people on a list that know that if your mother's in Florida, she could be sitting in the house. You know that at least she's checked in on her phone. If you're their kid, you don't have to talk to him on the phone. You don't have to call him. And if it's a kid, you know the kid.
If you think if you're worried your mother's dead, why don't you call her?
Well, let's say
mother, Mike.
People don't call their mother and father and live 2,500 miles away every day.
I just want to make sure you're not dead. Are you kidding? You should call your mother every day.
No. I'm talking about all day. You don't know.
You want to know the exact moment your mother died.
You can check in. You know that they've actually. Exactly.
Kevin O'Leary.
Horrifically bad. Really bad. Really bad.
I tried.
This is The Rich Eisen Show from The Rich Eisen Show studio in Los Angeles.
Ready for it? Ready for it?
Rich Eisen.
Oh, that's Susie Eisen's husband.
Thank you. That's why I'm here.
Heard nationwide, televised online at richeisenshow.com.
I only spit truth and deliver advice here that I think is well intended.
Earlier on the show, ESPN MLB insider Jeff Passan, Vikings head coach Mike Zimmer. Coming up, Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh, plus Kansas City Chiefs head coach Andy Reid. And now, it's Rich Eisen.
Final hour of this show here in our neighborhood. Last Thursday of May. We are thrilled to be happy and healthy enough to be here on the Rich Eisen Show and doing this show for you. YouTube.com/Rich Eisen Show, Sirius XM channel 211, NBC SN every single weekday between 1 and 3 Eastern Time. Mike Del Tufo and Chris Brockman at their posts, my audio executive and on-air compadre. And Chris Brockman. Andy Reid's going to be joining us in short order here on the Rich Eisen Show, head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. They won the Super Bowl, don't you know? And apparently there is a sentiment in the NFL where the 4th and 15 rule, are you saying that this is a piece of news? It did not pass, Chris Brockman?
Yeah, a minute ago, Albert Breer just tweeted, per his source, the onside kick proposal did not pass.
So the NFL is saying we will not give you a shot at giving you possession of the football with one shot from your own 25 on one shot on the 4th and 15. All right, well, we gotta take that all in while we turn to the phone lines right now and find. Let me put the Michigan helmet right there in front of me. Head coach, University of Michigan football, and my first quarterback is being a Michigan Wolverine on campus when I was a freshman there in Ann Arbor back in 1986. He is Jim Harbaugh. How are you, Coach?
Rich, good to be with you.
Good to be with you as well. How's your folks? How is everybody? Everybody healthy, happy?
Yeah, they're doing well. They both my mom and dad, they're 80, but they're doing great, and happy for that. But a lot of gratitude.
Of course. And are you all quarantined together as one family? Are you? Because I know you live right nearby.
Next door,
right
next door to each other. So yeah, we do see them though. We're literally walking, walk across walk to their house. Great. They walk up. So
my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
We're
doing what we're told.
Of course, no, I understand. Obviously, but so many people, like I FaceTime my mom a lot. It would be great to just, hey, here's the grandkids right there. You could just wave hello. That would be great. I'm glad you have that opportunity to do something like that. Okay, so where do things stand right now for you in the football season right now, Coach? Do we think we've got something cooking here? What's on your mind on that front?
Yeah, I do. I do believe that there's a lot of people with a lot of opinions right now. That's for sure.
Yes.
I think you see the NFL with the commissioner, one person probably making that decision. Getting a lot of advice, I'm sure. But college football, there's more involved. Multiple commissioners, school presidents, boards of regents. But I know players on our team all want to play, and hoping for better news as the weeks go on, and but revved up, motors revved up with wanting somewhere to go.
No, I know, and obviously, our school president saying in his mind that if there's no kids on campus, there'll be no football, and that there's a level of doubt. And again, you're the football coach, and as you point out, there's others who are making certain decisions. Have you reached out to other coaches within the conference to hear what's going on other campuses, or where's your stance on that front?
Oh yeah, we talk. We do a weekly call with all the Big Ten head coaches and athletic directors, and Kevin Warren, our commissioner, and Mark Redner, lots of folks, and we have doctors on that call. So you get updates, so you know what the NCAA is saying, that voluntary workouts can begin June 1st. It looks like mandatory will be July 1st, June 1st for voluntary. So that's kind of what we're at. So Monday is June 1st, and if states are open and they're not sheltering in place still, then the football players, athletes can come back to campus on a voluntary basis and do workouts.
Right. Man, have you become more of a public health expert than you ever thought you'd be, Coach?
Yeah, probably like everybody, right? I mean,
right.
We all. I read a lot. I do that. I've been reading a lot. And
what have you been reading?
Watch a lot of news, etc.
Well, you've watched all the Judge Judys there is. I know that. So what are you reading? What are you doing?
Well, I mean, today I'll tell you what, I'm really very, very upset about the George Floyd death, and that's kind of got me preoccupied today. I'm not just very horrendous. I'm just watching right now, and I'm looking forward to there be an investigation and waiting for that to charges. I mean, that's completely outrageous.
Yeah, I know I'm sure you're obviously on a campus, a college campus where that I'm sure is a major discussion. You're also a former coach of Colin Kaepernick, and you see all the memes out there of this is why he knelt. When was the last time you spoke to Colin, Coach? Has it been a while?
A few weeks ago. We texted. Every now and then, I'll get a text from Colin, or I'll text him. But I think that there was a graphic. I saw that too. This is why he knelt, and was it LeBron James who tweeted that?
I think so. I think he might have been exactly.
If you didn't know now, if you didn't know then, you know now. That spoke volumes, I thought.
Jim Harbaugh, Michigan football head coach here on the Rich Eisen show. Where are you again? I guess on protocols and health and safety. With have you reached out to? Obviously, you've got a healthcare, a great healthcare school on the campus, and I'm sure is there. Because I spoke to other head coaches and saying that this needs to be in the hands of parents before they return to campus. I'm wondering where you are on that front before we kind of turn to the concept of playing football.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There's a lot of things there. A great health system at Michigan. Our president's an immunologist, doctor, and so there's a lot of smart people. I got confidence, that they're going to give us the right direction. And as you said, I think it's a really important piece, and we've done it, is reached out to our parents and just, hey, this is our team. Of your sons. What do you think is right? How do you want to do this? And got a lot of great feedback, and you understand, you got a lot of smart parents, and by the way, they're parents.
Yes.
So that was tremendous feedback. I mean, they even shared some of the protocols that they have at where some of the companies they work at, Ford Motor Company and others. Some are doctors. Some had terrific suggestions and a survey of and also comments and tremendous things came back. That's actually helping us and in a big way. And we're going to go forward, and we're going to visit as a team again on Saturday with all parents and the athletes, and tell them where we're at and what we're looking for, and what has to happen. Things have to happen with the local governances, the state governances, the university. They're great, and they're really understanding. I mean, don't beat the coach up too much, because we don't know that much, and sometimes it changes.
Of course.
From week to week, let alone sometimes day to day. So, everybody's being respectful. Everybody's doing what they're respectful of what the doctors are saying, respectful of the virus, and ultimately we want the health and safety of the guys, the coaches, the staff, and everybody, the community to be the priority, I think, and that's being done. So that's really what there is to say about that. And I can applaud people because people are doing the right thing. They have been doing the right thing, and I think at the time it was 2 weeks, and then it's really turned into more like 2 months. But the curve's flattened. That's what everybody was set out to do, and let's keep going. Let's keep attacking this with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
Unknown to mankind, absolutely. And
the engines are revved. The engines are revved, Rich, and we want somewhere to go too.
I'm sure. And obviously Michigan Stadium would be a great place to start. And I know you already said, if there's no fans, there's no fans. You just want to get out there. In the meantime,
that's what the boys say. I mean, that's what the guys are saying too. I mean,
right.
They're initially shocked at what? There's a possibility there might not be fans, and yeah, I mean that's a real possibility because you could test the participants, the players, the coaches, the officials, the chain gang, the trainers, etc. But it's probably gonna be tough to test 100,000 people coming into a stadium.
Oh, yes.
And they understand that, and I go, well, here's the question: Would you rather not? Would you rather play in front of no fans or not play? And to a guy, they'd rather play. So that's some of the feedback.
Jim Harbaugh here on the Rich Eisen Show. Who's the quarterback going to be? How do you evaluate that right now? What is the current evaluation at that very crucial position, Coach?
That's to be seen. We got some guys we really love, and they've been chomping at the bit. I mean, I say there's guys that are excited to get back to working out with the team and back to practicing, but our quarterbacks in particular, they're chomping at the bit, which is better. And
but it is an open competition, is what you're saying, for that position.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, how do you conduct that when you might not be able to get them on the field? Get your, right now you're just, Zooming or whatever you're doing. And I know that your first year in the NFL was, if I'm not mistaken, you walked straight into a labor dispute. I'm wondering if anything like that is anything that you're drawing upon to make an evaluation from afar like this.
Yeah, but I have been doing that, Rich. Drawing a little bit of that experience in 2011 when there was the lockout, and so there are some similarities. The things I've drawn from it are, you got to really consider everything day by day, week by week, plan for the different scenarios, and there's going to be a lot of them, and some you're going to learn more as it goes on, and you don't know exactly when you're going to start, but also try to be as creative and proactive so you can be as productive as possible. And specifically with the quarterbacks, I mean, we've been having Zoom meetings. We've been installing football and told the guys, hey, learn the system, the best you can, be an expert at it when we do get back together, and also get in the best shape of your life and throw the football. Get out and throw it every day. And each guy, I'm going through the quarterbacks in my mind here. Each one has done that and taken advantage of that and gotten guys to throw to. And Dylan McCaffrey's been throwing with his brothers, Christian and Luke in Denver, and Joe Milton's been in Orlando, and then he came back to Ann Arbor, and he's got a bag of balls and finding guys to throw with. And Kate McNamara's got his brother who's going to be a incoming freshman wide receiver, and I mean they're calling and chomping at the bit, and what can they do, and getting coached. Ben McDaniel's been coaching them every day, and that they're on the insulation and been going over footwork and all kinds of stuff. So I know those guys are chomping at the bit. So
well, we all are, and we hope we get
hopefully better news here in the next couple weeks as it relates to Michigan. That our governor will open up a little bit more so we can get back together and guys can do voluntary workouts.
So before I let you go, couldn't help but notice this video made the rounds after Jaden Hood from my buddy Michael Irvin's alma mater, St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale. He committed to the University of Michigan, and you celebrated with a cartwheel. That's you, right? That is definitely you. I could see that. You gave a go blue. When was the last? How often do you cartwheel, Jim? How often is this happening?
Okay, so I can't comment on any recruiting, and so can we say that's I'm saying no comment to.
Okay, let me rephrase. Video of you online occurred cartwheeling for something. I don't know what it was for, but you cartwheeled. And my question is when was the last time? How often is this?
Rephrase the question. Yeah.
Did you? All right. First of all, I need to make sure.
That was me. I did a cartwheel.
That was you. You did a cartwheel for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And did we emerge from this victorious? Did we emerge from this with nothing lingering? No lingering issues.
No injuries.
Okay.
I was a little disappointed that I didn't get my legs up more to 90-degree angle, and
okay, but is that core work? That could be? We can work on that. We could work on that. Or is that upper body? I mean, what do you? Or just again?
It's core and shoulders. I think. I mean,
okay, could be khakis. It could be. I mean,
gymnastics move that.
Okay.
Was I don't know. I didn't give myself a very high point grade for that.
Oh, okay, but I mean, again, you're in your khakis. It looks like you do have some, you could blame it on the fabric, but again, it's still very impressive. I couldn't do any of that. That's very impressive. And you got a Ravens gear on. You sure that's not John? We sure that's
that was me in a Ravens t-shirt.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, very good. Hey, I remember. Yeah, you had it all on there. Hey, Jim.
Inspired by you, Rich. I mean, the guy goes out and runs a 40-yard dash every year in a suit. I mean,
yes.
You are we all pale in comparison.
I appreciate you saying that. Well, my whole family sends their best to you and my best to your entire family, Jim. Let's stay in touch. Catch up soon. Thanks for the call.
Of course, Rich. Stay safe, you and your family, and go blue, buddy.
Right back at you. That's Jim Harbaugh. Go blue. Go blue. Can't say. I could rephrase the question. Hey, man, it's not the first time I saw him in Ravens gear. The closing out of Texas Stadium. Tell this quick story before you throw to break, and then Andy Reid will join us. The closing out of Texas Stadium, Saturday Night Football. Ravens at Dallas. We were there. NFL Network. The night the Ravens were not nearly as good as anybody hoped, but they came in and ran all over the Dallas Cowboys, who had every single pretty much living member of their Ring of Honor and Hall of Fame in the house that night. Every Texas luminary from the world of football was there, including the one person I saw off the side of my set. Didn't get up off the set for anybody except spotting this person, to the point where the producers in the truck were like, what the hell are you getting up for? We're 2 minutes back from break. I'm like, I saw this person. I got to see him. The actor who played Buddy Garrity from Friday Night Lights, he was there.
All right.
He was the only guy his name escapes me. Buddy Garrity was there that night. When I say every luminary from Texas football was there, he was there. And I got up to go up and say, hey, man, you're awesome in Friday Night Lights playing
Brad Whelan.
Yes. He was there. The Ravens killed him. Willis McGahee is still running on him. Closed up Texas Stadium by spanking spanking the Dallas Cowboys and running off the field wearing Ravens gear because their season was over in Stanford. This is in Stanford. I said to him, you got to please come and coach Michigan.
Yeah, you were.
I stopped him, please come and coach Michigan. You know what he said to me? He just slapped my hand and ran off the field. Then ran off to the 49ers. I said to Jim Harbaugh then, I'm like, please, we need you.
You
so
were
I saw the way he was going with Rich
You were
Rod.
on top of that, though, from the beginning.
I was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's how we started.
You were the loudest one.
You were.
Everyone told you were crazy.
Okay, so when we come back, the news breaking out of the NFL, the rules changes that were proposed and voted on and up and down. And then Andy Reid will join us from the Kansas City Chiefs. Look at Andy right there. He looks so excited to join us. It's going to be great. He's Zooming with us when we come back. And yes, we see his inside of his lair.
I have a big swatch of the Dallas field in my house.
By the way,
I cut a big.
I believe
swatch.
it is a swath.
Swatch.
Or you get a
swatch is a watch. You're right.
Right.
Swath.
When you cut something, it's a swath, isn't it?
I probably.
I mean, you're
wrong.
asking the wrong guy. Let me just look this up.
Rich, look who you're asking. It's me and Brockman. You're going to trust.
I'm asking Mr. SpaceX himself.
I mean, you're going to trust. We are the chimps that they would put on before the humans fly.
Nice.
Swatch is a watch. Is a watch brand.
But to get a cut of something, it's a swath. You got
a swath. He's right. Rich is right.
It's a swath is a row or cut grain of grass.
TJ a little piece.
Left by a mowing machine, a long broad strip or belt.
The guy's like, we cut the field. He's like, yeah. It's like we're not doing anything with it.
But what are those little like samples of like rugs or like what is that called? Is that a swath?
It's a swath.
I have no idea.
It's a swath.
This is riveting.
So
Swatch is watch.
Yeah, Tom Pelissaro has all the updates on the rule changes.
Tom Pelissaro's got all. So they're zooming, huh?
Yeah, they're well, Microsoft probably whatever. Come on, Rich.
They don't like it.
Brand.
I need to be careful.
Zoom is like Kleenex now. If you say that, everybody knows what you're talking about.
Xerox, you know what I mean?
Xerox.
Yeah.
Band-Aid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly, Band-Aid.
That's what it is.
That's a good one.
It's an adhesive swab to every other human being, but we call it Band-Aid. Get me a Band-Aid.
All right, so I need to get up on the speed.
Yeah, so the 4th and 15 is tabled.
I know what that means.
Yeah, no official vote, but they did take a virtual show of hands. It did not have the support to pass, and so expect it to come up again at a later date.
I like that rule.
I know what they're gonna. I know. Can I?
What were they really thinking?
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to that in a second. Get that drop ready.
I'll be ready.
Get that drop ready. Because I know what tables means. What else did they vote on?
They did. So the rule changes that were approved: permanent expansion of automatic replay reviews, included scoring plays and turnovers negated by penalty. Expanded defenseless player protection for kick return and punt returns.
Yes.
Prevents manipulation of the game clock with multiple deal ball fouls.
They got rid of the
Belichick
smile and
Belichick Vrabel.
And the Vrabel going right back at the king.
Yeah. And then they increased the number of players that can be designated for return from injured reserve from 2 to 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yep, that's good.
I like it.
Those are the biggies. And then obviously the tabling of the 4th and 15.
They tabled it, eh?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to come back in a second, and then Andy Reid will join us. And if you're on hold, stay on hold. We will definitely take your phone calls before the end of the hour here on the Rich Eisen Show. 844-204-RICH is the number to dial. So we'll be back with the NBC SN crew in a moment. It's already been a fun show, and Andy Reid is going to make it even more fun. A very playful Andy Reid joins us when we come back. So I Zoomed with Andy Reid after the show yesterday, which is, a great way to start a sentence. Not nearly as much as a flex of saying, I know an astronaut who can call into the show to just absolutely dunk on Chris Brockman as we had Captain Mark Kelly do yesterday.
So in my 4 space missions.
And 100 spacewalks.
Okay, buddy, I get it.
So, thus, the information that we're about to have was not at our fingertips when I spoke to Andy Reid yesterday, with whom I did mention that 4th and 15 rule proposal. And again, because the onside kick has become very difficult to pull off in the health and safety era of the NFL, in which they've changed certain matters about kickoffs to keep people safe. 4th and 15, the ability to convert 4th and 15 is a much better percentage than conducting an onside kick. And according to Tom Pelissero of NFL Network, Albert Breer said per source the onside kick proposal did not pass. Well, it's been tabled. So it's different between voting on it and tabling. And the reason why both of these gentlemen are correct is I guess they had a show of hands who's into the idea,
right,
or who's against it. And whoever proposed, I guess the Eagles proposed this?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, they didn't withdraw it, which is what happened to the Sky Judge. When somebody gets something withdrawn, they know that there's no shot of this thing passing now or in the future.
Right.
If they table it, they're like, we don't want it, the stink of it being voted down. We'll table it. We're going to keep this in front of you. What that means to me is some people don't like the distance, maybe make it 4th and 20, get it closer to the current percentage of an onside kick. Or they don't like what Mike Zimmer pointed out, and as we pointed out yesterday and confirmed with Al Riveron,
the penalty.
You get an illegal hands to the face,
right, or a
5-yard
holding or something.
Anything happens,
right,
and suddenly the ball belongs to.
Yes.
And maybe you remove the automatic first down aspect of those penalties and just say it's a 5-yarder.
And then 4th and 15 or 4th and 10
right.
or whatever. Right.
You don't just get a fresh set of downs because it's a defensive penalty. There's parts of this thing that I think not enough members of the community in the NFL with a defensive mindset, or even just a head coach, is like, it's too much of a percentage of it working out. So far away from the current percentage of onside kick. In terms of rules that were approved, you make a permanent expansion of automatic replay reviews to include scoring plays, turnovers negated by foul. How about that? I like that idea. Extends defensive player protection to kickers are people too, man. I've been saying this, punters are people too. I've been saying that. They're defenseless people, human beings who are defenseless. Doesn't matter if they punt or kick for a living. Okay? Returners too. All right? Returners, punters, all of you people. All right? And then game clock manipulation with multiple dead ball fouls. We got to get Per on tomorrow to personally explain this, what that means. But here's what it is. You remember when Belichick was messing with the Jets and was smiling as they were blowing out the Jets on Monday Night Football, and then Vrabel used the same thing against Belichick and went
like
crazy
2 minutes in the playoff game
during that game.
They're gotten rid of that.
Yeah,
So the cat and mouse that led to some of the great Belichick sideline moments of 2019 are now history.
That was fun.
Now then. Here's my conversation with Andy Reid on Zoom. And yes, we do get to see the lair. Check it out. Joining me now here on the Rich Eisen Show is the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, the Super Bowl winning head coach, Andy Reid. How are you? Andy?
I'm doing good, Rich. Thanks. Yeah.
First time I ever introduced you that way. It's been a long time coming. A long time.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. Yeah.
How has life changed for you? Obviously, we're living in unique times, but before all that and during all this, that you've reached your professional pinnacle in that regard finally after a long wait. How has that changed things for you?
Yeah, I told my wife, I said, here we've been doing it a long time, and a lot of the guys we've been together for a long time here, coaches, and so we've got like 221 wins, and all of a sudden that 222nd win, 4 hours of football, all of a sudden changes kind of everybody's perspective of things and about you, and the organization. And it's it's a neat deal. The thing is, once you taste it, then you want to get back. So you like every coach, we're shooting for this thing, but it even adds a little bit more to it after you've been there.
Now, you know, it's funny you say 4 hours of football. You could even just say 1 quarter of football, right? I mean, about the fourth quarter, right? And how things turned around. One of the most remarkable things that I saw based off of all that, Coach, was when it was time to draw up the play. the play that turned things around.
The Wasp.
Yeah, the Wasp. And just to see how Patrick Mahomes was the one who suggested it, and your offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy going through it with him, and then just saying, "Yeah, let's do it." And it's something that was kind of a reversal on the field of what you had run against New England, right? In a big regular season game. Walk me through how you set things up for you as a coach and as a decision maker. How organically things like that can develop.
Yeah, well, it's funny because we've been talking about that the few series before that, really all the second half was, listen, if we get an opportunity where we felt protection was good enough, you heard Patrick actually say, do we have enough time to throw the thing?
Right.
And so we were kind of working in that realm, and we had talked about it. We had just talked about it before we went on the field. And so we're between Eric, myself, and Pat and Mike Kafka, we were all on the same page. We were all kind of thinking the same thing. And so we called it, and his biggest worry was just that he had enough time. He talked to Tyreek and just said, hey, make sure you keep running on this thing because it's going to be there. We had run a play that we called the Bolt before that and a little bit before that in the game. And so this is just a complimentary play to that, and it ended up working. I mean, we got the right coverage for it, and their corner kind of snagged the dagger route on the outside. But to get back to your point is we have full trust in everybody. That's the important thing. And with Patrick, you feel comfortable talking to him about things and bouncing things off of him. It's open communication. And I think if you ask Eric Bieniemy, he'd tell you the same thing.
Well, in terms of Bieniemy, I'd like to just linger on him for a moment and who he is and the opportunities that he really is on the cusp, one would hope, of getting, and the conversation about the Rooney Rule being strengthened in recent days. I'm wondering what you could tell me about Eric's ascension in your ranks and his readiness, you think?
Yeah, so I had Eric as a player way back when. It was my first year at Philadelphia, and he came in and kind of helped me get that thing going there as a player. And then I was able to hire him, and I even go further back. I was there on the 5th down. I was at Missouri when he was at Colorado when it took him 5 downs to beat us, which I'm still better at it. But anyways, he goes and he jumps in the NFL. He's with the Minnesota Vikings as a coach. I was so happy that he decided to be a coach because he was that way as a player. And then ends up going and being the coordinator at Colorado at his alma mater, and then UCLA also. I had a chance to coach there, and then all of a sudden he's back in the NFL. I'm able to hire him and get him back in there. It was a no-brainer. But you always knew that he knew everything. I mean, he knew everything about everything. So when I had a chance to make him the coordinator, again, that was an easy decision. And it's just hard. I think it's hard when you're in the playoffs as much as we are, and these owners want to bring you in and talk to you. They're only going to get a little taste of Eric Bieniemy. And then they've got to make a decision. You can't spend a lot of time because we're asking them to come back and coach, and they've got a couple hours with them, and you can't get the full picture of him. The leadership of his leadership of men, how he makes everybody around him better, tougher. He makes them toe the line on and be diligent with their studies, and all these little things that we see day in and day out, and the players see day in and day out, that we just know that he's going to be very successful as a head football coach. But again, it's no fault of anybody. It's just that somebody's going to have to trust, and that these are the things that take place with him, and they're things that they might not see in a 2-hour interview or whatever that we see.
Andy Reid here on the Rich Eisen Show, and then Mahomes, just the memories. It's not too long ago, obviously. He's still a young kid. He's been in the league only for a couple of years as a starter, MVP of the league 1 year as a starter, and then the second year as a starter, MVP of the Super Bowl. But the memories of you just sitting next to Mahomes, just sitting right next to him as soon as he comes off the field, just chit-chatting. How do you think that helped his development and did lead to the guy who's like, let's use the Wasp, in the fourth quarter of a Super Bowl, trying to turn things around?
Yeah. Listen, it's a trust thing. I know he wants to be the best. He's not going to sit there and boast about that and tell people, but he wants to maximize all of his potential. As a coach, you love that. So he wants you to give him one more thing to even be greater than what he already is. And you can appreciate that. So that opens up, he trusts myself and Eric and Mike as teachers. And we trust when he brings us something. It's there. Now, myself and Eric have to make that final decision on what we do. But at the same time, to have a team and to have that again, that trust becomes a very important thing. And he's got the trust of his teammates too, which is huge. That's a big part of it. Your quarterback's got to be kind of a in-between guy. He's got to be able to transmit to the players and also to the coaches and really to the administration of your organization. And he's able to walk all of those paths and do it very smooth and with great intelligence, and his demeanor is a special thing. So he's going to do nothing but get better, Rich. That's what's so great.
I know it's crazy. It's crazy, right? I mean, what does he have to improve on, Andy? What do you think?
Well, I joke him. I say, listen, quarterbacking's a lot like being a farmer. Like the work's never done. There's something in the game that you can work on, and then it's our responsibility to give them new challenges. And so there's so much you can do offensively in football right now, and there's no rules as far as there. I mean, there are certain rules. We still got to stop at red lights, but it's there's a lot of ways to get to it. So the expansion, I guess, of offenses with the way the colleges are playing now is greater than it's ever been. And we're able to utilize more field than we've ever used. And so let's explore that. And let's not say anything's impossible until we prove it's impossible ourselves. Let's try that. And then we'll see where we end up. Who knows? But he's all in on that kind of thinking. And he doesn't put a lot of blinders on his game. I give so much credit to Alex when he was here, Alex Smith, just for the job that he did on letting him understand that. Understand that, okay, you've got talent. Let's see where it ends. Let's not be afraid to go there and see where we can get this thing and explore that. And Alex was great with that.
So now, in terms of exploring and not being afraid, 4th and 15 with a game on the line, needing a possession, it seems that's going to be in your repertoire as a head coach now with the alternative onside kick. You like this?
This is my thing. I know we can do it. I mean, I'm comfortable with doing it. I'm a little bit of a traditionalist in some ways because I think this can lead a little bit down the road to where all of a sudden you start kicking out the kickoff return and kickoff. And I've got talented players for that particular phase of the game. And I got the best, or at least one of the best, and possibly in the history of the game, coaches in Dave Tope. So I like to be able to exploit that area with it. And I guess you still can, depending on how this rule goes through with a different phase. But at one time, we onside kicked all the time, and we didn't really care if it was beginning of the game or whenever. When I was in Philadelphia, they've kind of restricted the rules on that a little bit to where the onside kick isn't quite as easy to do. I think it's 11% production on that. So
you know the math there. So maybe you do the math on a 4th and 15 with
that's in the 30s. You're right about 30%. So
that's what I'm saying. You do the math, and I'm wondering, would you ever do the math and figure out it would be worth your while to steal a possession? So you're up and you go for it on 4th and 15 just to keep the ball?
Yeah, that would be, I think, you'd have to evaluate that, but I haven't got that far with it. But if you don't get it, you got to look at that side too. So you got pretty.
You have Mahomes though. You've got Mahomes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point, Rich.
You
I'll
know?
let you make that call and then deal with it afterwards.
Well, I mean, I can go up and just say, you could basically say Rich Eisen told me I've got Mahomes, and then say time's yours. That's what you
That's
say.
right. Time's yours, baby.
Then you just say that. But again, it's just an interesting. It's funny you say there's no rules. I mean, shoot, you used a play from the 1940s Rose Bowl during the Super Bowl, right? I mean,
yeah, that was a fun one.
Where you can ever get something like that.
Well, you know what? It's weird. I mean, it's crazy how that works. So I somehow in my file of tape, I got that tape a while back, and I looked at it and I'm going, man, this is unbelievable. Some of the stuff they were doing. And so, and then by chance this past summer, I went to a function with my old high school coaches and back in Los Angeles, and the offensive coordinator that we had in high school hands me a tape, and he goes, "This is the 48 Rose Bowl." I had the 49 one. He goes, "This is 48 Rose Bowl. Coach Dean Dill was the quarterback for SC in this game." So I go, "Oh wow, that's pretty amazing." And so I went through it and looked at it, and it was the same stuff. I mean, it was the same plays, and I go, "Oh man, this is going in." I mean, we got to put a couple of these plays in. These are incredible plays. So we had a couple of them. We practiced them all season. I reminded the officials all year that, listen, we're going to line up the quarterback here. We're going to spin around. We're going to do, but it's going to be a dive. That's what the plays can end up being. We're legal. And then of all the games to forget to tell them, I didn't tell them in the Super Bowl. I didn't have a chance before they were heading for the door.
Right.
And one of the officials goes, "Listen, I've done your last 3 or 4 games." He goes, "Are you still running that play from the Rose Bowl?" I go, "Oh, absolutely. We're running it today." And he goes, "You still haven't run that?" I said, "No, we haven't run it. So it's coming. It's coming." Right? Like, so anyways, that's
and then you on Cork it. I think Travis Kelce told me that it took a while for, was it Mahomes that he couldn't get his footwork down or something like that? He said it took a long time for.
No. It wasn't Mahomes. It was Sammy.
That's what.
Sammy's got size 13 or 14 shoes.
Right.
And his ability to spin.
It's what it was.
It's not good. He can do everything as a wide receiver that, I mean, he's as good as can be, but to spin around. So I figure he's probably not a very good dancer. But,
hey, he's got a ring on his finger, just like you.
That's right.
I guess before I let you go, I'll ask you the $64,000 question everybody's been asking is there going to be a season? And I know you're not a public health expert, you're a football coach, but you're on the front lines of trying to figure out the controllables, I'm sure. And in this most uncontrollable of environment, what do you think, Coach?
Yeah, so I'm going forward. Like that's what we're having. We've put training camp together. We've got it all set up, and there have been some new rules with the new CBA that we've had to work our way through. And I talked to Eric and Spags and Tobe about it. And I said, listen, even if we don't have it or we have to rearrange it, then we go through and we can do that. But with the new CBA, we can use this going down the road, this format. And so that's how we've gone about it, gone so far with it. And if there's some changes, we'll change. And I presume there's going to be a season. I think once the weather warms up here and the science part of the game of the disease get worked out, then we'll be in a pretty good situation, and hopefully be able to get some fans back in the stands and kind of get things going again and keep it normal and positive.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm looking at it. My heart goes out to all these people that have had to deal with this son of a gun. I mean, physically dealt with it, and it's just been a shame. And the people that passed away, I mean, it's terrible. But I mean, here we sit, and going forward, I'm gonna try to keep it as positive as I can with you on that, so that
I hear you.
We go forward and let's play a little football.
Of course, and people could get maybe a little bit of a break from it, or throw themselves into a season. I know so many fans have waited for 50 years to finally get the feeling that you were able to provide for them, and that's obviously something that everybody in the NFL takes very seriously. In the meantime, you were sheltered in place for the draft. I'll be honest with you, we on our show really got a big kick out of your setup at home Coach, looked like a basement. Is this the room that you were in?
Yeah, this is it. It kind of looks like I've got a glorified Michigan helmet on, right?
Yeah, yes, those beams do look that way.
Or I look like the Statue of Liberty. But that's it, right?
No,
there.
but that also means there's a Stairmaster there, right?
Yeah, it's right behind me. I'm hiding it from you.
Okay.
I'm also hiding it from myself. No, I'm not. I do get on that thing and try to crank it out.
Okay, because we were wondering. We thought it was very interesting. The photograph that was out there was a towel placed on it, made it look like it was freshly used, and we were just wondering.
Yeah. Believe it or not, I get on that thing, and it talks to me. We have a relationship. That thing. And
what does it say to you? What does it say to you?
Well, it's like the last 15 minutes. It's not good. It really talks dirty to me, and it's terrible. So I can't say that on radio here.
Okay.
Or TV, whatever we're on this web, on this chat here.
It's all good. It's multi-purpose. It's kind of like your offense. Coach, appreciate the time. Best to you and your family.
All right, Rich. Likewise, man. I appreciate you. Thank you.
You got it. Right back at you. That's Andy Reid, Super Bowl winning head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Not many people like Andy Reid, man. He's living life very, very well. Man, I could have gone on and on and on with him. I don't think I've ever asked him about his punt, pass, and kick competition in the LA Coliseum, where he was a man among boys.
What is there to say? That picture says it all.
I know, right? But there'll be more interviews with Andy Reid.
I'm so happy he won last year.
It really was just great. It
was awesome.
And again, that was recorded after the show yesterday. The rule that we discussed at length. Perhaps maybe everybody in the AFC West voted against it because you give Andy Reid one shot at 4th and 15 to keep a football. That you've played defense well enough to beat the Chiefs, and they are on a roll with Patrick Mahomes, as we saw in the second quarter of the divisional playoff game and the fourth quarter of the final game of the year. They're on a roll, and you give them a shot from 4th and 15 to keep the football. You're raising your hand saying no. That's been tabled. What hasn't been tabled are your phone calls. How's that for a segue?
All right.
844-204-RICH. We'll take those calls and discuss a little bit more about the breaking news out of the NFL when we come back. Okay. 844-204-RICH.
You know who's going to have a great Hall of Fame bust one day?
Andy Reid?
Andy Reid. With that big mustache. And it's going to be awesome.
It'll be a great speech, too.
Yeah.
We haven't heard anything official out of Canton, Ohio, right?
We have not. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and we have not. The NBA announced it's pushing back its Hall of Fame stuff until next year.
Right, and baseball's already said the same thing.
Yeah.
I got to think they got to, at this point.
You know what? I think what's happening there, if I had to guess, is they're just taking the cue from the NFL that everything is as it's going until we're told we most certainly cannot. And honestly, you need hotel rooms. You need people there in the stands. I mean, you're not going to have. Yeah, you are not going to just in the same way that you could. Let's hold this event without fans. These gentlemen who have been waiting their entire football lives for this moment,
right? They're
not going to give speeches to an empty stadium.
Just think about that.
And all of the members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame returning class that makes it so special are all of a certain age, many of them of a certain age, that they're in the most vulnerable group. Not going to have them up there.
Yeah. And just think about
the
speeches over the years, that Jerome Bettis speech we were at a few years ago. Imagine that speech with no fans.
Oh, I know that.
It's just not the same.
And JB will understand this and appreciate this coming from me, is that let's just all wait till everybody can come back in and be healthy, and we'll have one big long speech of days of speeches that when you add them all together still won't be as long as Jerome's. So he'll still have the record, even when then there's 25 speeches over and over and over again,
Favre
like stacked
has the
up.
record.
Oh, Favre did go along.
Favre broke it like 2 years later.
I remember when the words used to be, "I have no notes" when you started. It would just,
goodness.
No.
You knew.
Oh, no. Well, then did Ray beat Favre?
Well, the thing that Ray did that broke a new barrier was he had one of those
Madonna mic.
The Madonna mic. Walked around. It's perfect.
And the great thing is the NFL Network crack staff, to use the Marv phrase, saw a shot of Irv seeing that for the first time, and he was like,
he was mad.
Why didn't I think of that?
He wanted that.
Why didn't I think of that?
Exactly. Michael wanted that. Michael.
844-204-RICH, number to dial. Let's take some people's phone calls. It's certainly those who've been hanging on for as long as they have. Let's go to Mark in Virginia. What's up, Mark? What's on your mind? You're on the
Hi,
Rich
Rich.
Eisen.
Pleasure to meet your acquaintance.
Likewise.
First of all, continuing on with your earlier NFL draft and Maryland Terps discussion, what do you think about Pittsburgh Steelers' fourth-round draft choice, the ultra-quick Anthony McFarland? Do you think that now he's going to be running with a top-flight unit that he might be one of those guys who's a better pro than a collegian, now that he's going to have a group whose abilities more closely complement his preternatural abilities? What do you think about McFarland?
Well, hold on a second, Mark. Let me just stop you right there. First of all, excellent use of preternatural, and I believe, Chris, you've been here for almost every syllable. I know. Susie sat in your chair for the last show on Audience because Cage was born.
Correct.
So you very rarely have you not been in a chair for a show that whether I've been here or not.
Yes.
That is the first use of preternatural, correct?
Without question.
And Mark, congratulations. That is the most specific question I've ever had posed to me in the 5+ years of this show. I will always answer questions honestly. I have no earthly idea how to answer your question other than the manner in which I've done so. I have no earthly clue how that will your draftee of in question will fare in the National Football League.
Yeah, the University of Maryland guy breaking out the unabridged dictionary here.
I like it. On behalf of Scott Van Pelt, one of my agents, Ryan Hayden, and anyone else that I know that went to Maryland, I say, well done, sir. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Please call.
You're very welcome.
Please call back. Thank you. I thought that was a very cordial exchange.
It was great.
With a fan of the show who I appreciate calling in and dropping polysyllabic words that caused definitely you and Mike Del Tufo to look up.
We were.
But that's a very specific.
Very specific.
I don't know.
We don't get a lot of questions.
By the way,
about
I am
fourth-rounders.
absolutely fine being a host to come on a show in one of these monolithic setups, right? Where I'm supposed to know everything about everything. I have no problem looking into this camera and saying, I don't know. It's very rare because I do know everything, usually. Right, Chris?
Usually.
I know best. I know best.
I will say the Tennessean gave that pick a B+.
Hey! By the way, draft grades are in terms of some of the most useless
Just saying.
analyses that anybody in our industry can put up there. Draft grades. First blush, B+. Who did the Tennessean give an A- to? You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Number 2. What was Tom Brady's draft grade?
C+.
I would love to say we give the Patriots a D+. What are they doing this for? Drew Bledsoe's $100 million a year court. Why are they using a
probably had
sixth-round
a
draft?
C.
D+. This guy couldn't even start all the games at the University of Michigan. Who cares that he just obliterated Rex Grossman's Orange Bowl records?
C-.
Let's get to Cash in Missouri. What's up, Cash?
I have hey Rich.
Hey, Cash.
I have a question about how Clyde Edwards-Helaire is gonna on the Chiefs' first round pick. I want to see how he's gonna mesh. Like how's he gonna do with all the Chiefs' weapons?
I think he's going to mesh perfectly, Cash. I think he's going to be great. Andy Reid, who we just had on the show, said, and one of the things I just couldn't get to because there was so much to ask him, he said he's maybe even better than Brian Westbrook, who he had with the Eagles way back before I think you were even born. How old are you?
I'm 11 years old.
Yeah, so you wouldn't even remember Brian Westbrook playing for the Eagles. He was dynamite in the Reid system, and the fact that he says he's even better, I thought that was a great pick, and look out. Look out. I assume you're a Chiefs fan, huh?
Yes, I am.
You know, there are people who are 5 times as old as you who are waiting for what you saw as an 11-year-old. You're so lucky.
My dad is.
Yeah? Oh, yeah. I'm a 50-year-old shell of a man, Cash, waiting for my team to give as much joy to me as you are as an 11-year-old. I'm a very, very hard-bitten shell of a 50-year-old man, so you enjoy what you've had placed in front of you, okay?
Okay.
You call back, Cash. I love telling the youth of America, as old as my oldest son, that I'm a hard-bitten shell of a man. Look at you, Cash. You're a 9-year-old. All of a sudden, quarterback is Patrick Mahomes. I'm 11, and Patrick Mahomes is going to be my quarterback until I'm 31. How does that feel, Rich? Why am I putting myself in the shoes of an 11-year-old
I'm not sure why you're
being
doing that.
bitter towards me?
It's kind of weird.
Because the Jets can't do it.
What do you mean? You got Flacco.
Don't you have the Joe Flacco soundbite? Isn't that lurk somewhere? Did we not use it yesterday? No, forget it.
He's not going to be ready for week 1, by the way.
Joe, they signed a guy who's not even ready for week 1.
That's what he said. He's not going to be ready for week 1.
At least he can download Sam Darnold.
But like week 4, like I said, when Darnold has typhoid, it's like, it's fine.
Scurvy. He's going to have scurvy.
Cholera. Right? It's all good.
Cholera, brother, one time.
Cholera.
Okay. I want to thank Mike Zimmer, Rebecca Lowe, my friend Jeff Passan from ESPN joining us again in the first hour, talking about what baseball's doing or not doing. Jim Harbaugh and Andy Reid for taking in this show. And I want to thank everybody out there for dialing us up today. I had fun with you, and I hope to see you all back here on a Friday edition of The Rich Eisen Show.